Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. It is Monday, October 19th, and we're certainly pleased to have you in attendance tonight. We'll start our meeting with a roll call of your City Council.
Council members Karski.
Here.
Kiley.
Here.
Rolfing.
Here.
Staggers.
Present.
Anderson. Erickson. Here. Erpenbach. Here. Jameson.
Here.
Councilors, thank you for being here tonight. We will start our meeting tonight with an invocation, and we're very, very blessed to have Pastor Bob Schell here with the St. Dismas Lutheran Church. And Pastor Bob is going to tell you a little bit about St. Dismas as well as lead us in that invocation tonight. After Pastor Bob is done, what we'd ask you to do is to stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Bob.
Okay. Thank you very much. Jesus said that those who want to follow him and be his disciples are supposed to be in the world but not of the world. That's the way I like to think of the congregation I serve, St. Dismas. It's high on the top of the hill, the penitentiary here in Sioux Falls. So the men have to climb the equivalent of 5 tiers to get to the chapel. I like to think that they're climbing out of prison for an hour. I say that because the men I serve are reminded of the worst thing they've ever done, 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. They're reminded by inmates stenciled across their back and down their leg. They're reminded by steel bars, by rules. One of the men said prison is a place where if somebody breaks a rule, they make a new rule for everybody forever. And that's really not far from wrong. But when they come into the chapel, they're a man first and an inmate second. It's the only place they're called by their baptismal name, their first name, instead of their DOC number, Department of Corrections number, their cell assignment, or their last name. St. Dismas, for that hour a week, is a respite from the worst thing they've ever done, a place when they're valued as a child of God rather than a ward of the state. I think of the penitentiary as kind of like that too, in that it's in Sioux Falls but not part of Sioux Falls. It's a place apart, and the men there are not citizens of Sioux Falls yet. Many, if not most of them, will be citizens when they walk out those doors. Some will parole to Unit C, where they'll get a job and save money till they find an apartment. Others will parole to family or friends. Some will flat their sentences, be in parole, but they'll just finish their sentence, they'll get a check for $50 and be let out the front gate of the penitentiary. Unfortunately, some of those men have no education. Few are greeted by family or friends. A lot of those bridges were burned a long time ago for lots of complex reasons. Some of the men grew up in families like yours, and some of them bounced around in foster homes. Each of their stories is unique. But they have one thing in common. They want to be successful on the street. They want to rejoin society. They want a job. They want a home. They want friends. They want family. When I first started at St. Dismas, I wondered why so many came back to prison. Well, it isn't the lure of the criminal life by any means. That's a crummy life, a rotten life. But I think more often the reason is the absence of jobs, the absence of housing or support. Those things that most of us don't even think about but take for granted. When you add the lack of treatment or educational opportunities or job training, you can see that theirs is a tough road. Jesus said those of us who would be disciples, he said this, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." Ours is a Christian community, and a Muslim community, and a Jewish community, and a Native, and a nun, and a Hindu, and a Buddhist, and many other faith communities. But we share a common responsibility and a common humanity to care for the least in our community. As a citizen, I want to ask the church council as leaders of our community to help us to be our best selves, to serve at the banquet, to give to the Glory House, or support the Family Connection, or St. Vincent de Paul. All those agencies that care for the least in our community. Last Thursday, a young man approached me after worship. He'll flat his sentence on December 31st, 2015. I don't know what time, but sometime that day or early the next morning, he'll walk through those gates, probably the newest citizen of Sioux Falls for 2016. Help us to welcome him. Help us to provide the support and the opportunities he needs to be a success. Help us all to be disciples, to follow our own faith journey, that we may serve the Creator, that we might serve each other. Thank you.
If you'd rise for our Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's meeting. I'm certainly glad to have you here. Is there anybody here for World Polio Day? Oh, very good. Very well, welcome. Good to have you here. Please come forward. Would you mind just introducing yourself to the people of our town, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Joel Dykstra. I'm the president of Downtown Rotary.
I'm Shelley Masick, and I'm the area assistant governor.
Well, thank you both for being here tonight. I do have a proclamation that I'd like to read. Whereas Rotary International, founded on February 23rd, 1905 in Chicago, Illinois, is the world's first and one of the largest nonprofit service organizations. Whereas there are more than 1.2 million Rotary Club members comprised of professional and business leaders in more than 34,000 clubs in 200 countries and geographic areas. Whereas there are 475 Rotary Club members right here in Sioux Falls who sponsor service projects to address critical issues such as polio, poverty, health, hunger, literacy, and the environment. Whereas in 1985, Rotary launched Polio Plus and spearheaded the Global Polio Eradication Initiative with the World Health Organization, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and UNICEF to immunize the children of the world against polio. Whereas in September and October of this year, 27 million children in Afghanistan and Pakistan were vaccinated. These are the two remaining endemic countries in the world. Whereas since 2012, Rotary raised $228 million in new money for polio eradication in response to a $355 million challenge grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which promptly contributed an additional $50 million in recognition of Rotary's commitment. And whereas the Rotary model, service above self, inspires members to provide humanitarian service, encourage high ethical standards, and promote goodwill and peace in the world. Now, therefore, I, Mike Cuther, Mayor of the City of Sioux Falls, do hereby proclaim October 23rd, 2015 as World Polio Day in Sioux Falls and encourage all citizens to join me and Rotary International in the fight for a polio-free world. Thank you for your leadership, your stewardship, for all you do, and thanks for bringing this to our attention tonight. Thank you. Council, thank you very much. We'll now move to our consent agenda. Any motions, changes?
Move for approval, Anderson.
Second, Rolfing.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve our consent agenda, seconded by Councilor Rolfing.
Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Karski.
One item, I believe, on the consent agenda, and that's our contract for wastewater with Brandon. Is Mark Cotter here?
Mark?
Okay, I'd like to pull that from the consent agenda, please.
Very good. We'll pull that. Thank you. Councilors, anything else? Is that the only item?
Appears to be yes.
Okay. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Karski,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach. Yes. Jameson.
Yes.
Thank you, Council. That is passed 8-0. Our regular agenda tonight, any changes, motions?
Move for approval, Anderson.
Second, Erpenbach.
There's been a motion by Councilor Anderson Jr., seconded by Councilor Erpenbach to approve our agenda tonight. If no changes, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Karski.
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Jameson.
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Thank you. Folks, welcome to tonight's meeting. There's a number of items on the agenda tonight, and we're looking forward to discussing those. But if there's any other topics that you want to cover right now involving your city, please just come forward, introduce yourself to the people of our town, and all we'd ask is that you limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. Welcome.
Mayor Hirthu, City Council members, thank you so much for taking public comment. My name is Randa Heller. I'm a licensed massage therapist, and I have lived in the City of Sioux Falls for the last 18 years or more. As a licensed massage therapist, Sioux Falls used to have city licensure. That was then taken over by the state in 2005 when state licensure passed. As a massage therapist working out of my home, I have a $20 city license. That limits me to 4 clients a day, and that lets you know that I will abide by traffic and those different things. So we as massage therapists here in town discovered that we were gaining a larger and larger unlicensed massage, and these are retail businesses, and they are on some very prominent places in Sioux Falls. We then discovered that our state licensure has its limits. As well as city licensure, there was establishment licensure back in the day. Back in the day, we were also lumped under escort services, which I'm married to a retired Secret Service agent. I had to go down and get a mugshot and my fingerprints taken. It was quite distressing. And the city rolled that back too, thinking the state would take care of this. Now, if you remember back in December, up on 10th, right across from the new Hy-Vee, there was an arrest made at Happy Dragon Massage. Lily was arrested for no license and prostitution. Happy Dragon has since closed. We have been working, a few of us have been working with the police because much to our distress, we have discovered that unlicensed massage, the enforcement of that by the state is really quite limited over unlicensed massage practice. All the licensed massage therapists are duly under that board, but unlicensed massage, in March of this year, they actually adopted a policy, and I'd be happy to show you that on the South Dakota Board of Massage website. Their legal counsel, his name is Mr. Jim Carlin, recommended, and the board then adopted a policy that reads, when an unlicensed massage complaint is taken, it will be turned over to the state's attorney in that county and dismissed for due to lack of jurisdiction. So, Happy Dragon then closed. And again, that was therapists working with the police because we are getting more and more calls soliciting, more and more text messages, the therapists that are working legitimately in retail. They are getting phone calls, text messages asking for, they're being solicited for sexual acts. And it's quite distressing. So we then, Jamie's at the Empire Mall, the police at our recommendation went in and found that because it is a Class 1 misdemeanor punishable by a $1,000 fine and a year in jail, they then went into Jamie's at the mall where they were actually selling gift certificates and discovered that there was 0 licenses there. And they had been operating quite publicly for quite a period of time. There was another one, Jamie's, which was down the street in a professional building, who also had 0 licenses. They have since closed. There was one in T that the Lincoln County State's Attorney, they did prosecute. They got 2 guilty verdicts of China Massage in T, both her and her husband. They were given 90 days suspended and I believe about $85 in court costs. They've been operating for 10 years. And prior to that, she was operating in the city of Sioux Falls, and she did have a run-in with the law here that I believe was dismissed. I don't know if it was ambiguousness of the law. I don't know the details. So a new one opened up on Minnesota. That one was called Asian Moonlight Massage. I went, wow, maybe this one's legit, and I can get a good Thai massage there. So I walked in and asked if they did walk-in massage. They did. They had 3 therapists. And did they do Thai massage? Well, no, but they could do massage. And I said, well, may I see your licenses? And they produced a South Dakota tax revenue license, and they stated to me that City Hall told them that was all they needed. They are a second language. I did call the massage board. They told me to make a complaint, which I did in December. At that time, they had no policy. These complaints just laid on the massage board's desk until the next meeting, when they apparently were being dismissed for lack of jurisdiction. So how then are we keeping the public safe? I would ask that perhaps the city and the state start working together on this. I then called the police that day. I called 911. A young officer, Officer English, came out. He did not know that there was a state law. He thought health department handled it. I said they don't anymore. We called them. He verified that. He did not take a report. He did not call a supervisor. I then came down to the state's attorney's office and said, what's going on here? And I talked to a gentleman who is actually no longer there, and he said, we can't do anything without a police report. So do you see how I'm kind of getting nowhere on a fast track here? As I said, I was getting a lot of calls from therapists who were upset about this. So now...
Ms. Heller, I truly apologize.
Am I at 5?
Well, you're at about 6.5 right now. So, first of all, thanks for bringing this to our attention. I know the council's interested in it. I certainly am as well. This is the first that we've kind of been made aware of this, and it won't be the last.
I would be available for any council member to speak to. If perhaps the council could consider, and I would be available because I have a lot more information, and apparently time flies. So if a council would perhaps think about some kind, because they do other vending licenses where they could check that, and it's quite interesting because that is not the only place, and some of them have been given citations, and they are operating at this point.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
Scott Harrisman, Sioux Falls. Another thing to look at with what she's talking about, I was just thinking, is one of the reasons why a lot of these places aren't licensing themselves is because they have illegal immigrants working for them. And you really don't want state agencies and city agencies coming through your business when your workers aren't legal immigrants. So that's another thing to look at, is why they're not licensing themselves. Here to talk about the cell phone ban. It's the first reading tonight, so I thought I'd talk about it in public testimony, since the second reading is the only time the public can come up and talk. I think that the cell phone ban total ban is really unneeded. Distracted driving laws, reckless driving laws, there's all kinds of laws in place that already do it. But I do believe that the public, a large percentage of the public does support it. And if it were put to a vote, it would be probably very close, 50-50. My suggestion would be, from a person who has experience of doing petitions and being involved with that stuff, that this group goes out and gets a petition drive going and gets it on the ballot so that the voters can vote on this very public safety issue. I believe it's above your guys' pay grade. The other thing about that is that they have this long list of businesses that support this. I'm thinking to myself, all these businesses that support this, they have all these employees they could give petitions to. They could get petitions in really fast. So I would suggest that you kill it tonight after the first reading and not vote on it at all. But if you do have to vote on it, just don't vote against it and suggest they get a petition drive going. and, learn like the rest of us do. If we need something done in this town, sometimes it takes a petition drive. As for the total ban on single malt beverages, I totally understand why we probably want to do this. But I also got to realize something as I talked to someone today about this. You're probably going to create a bigger problem, and I'll tell you why. Alcoholism is a disease. Alcoholics will find a way to get alcohol no matter what. And if we get rid of the single malt beverages, they'll just go buy a 6-pack or a 12-pack, which ironically would make the problem even worse because they're having even more alcohol. This really has to do with the ABV of the alcohol and not the size of the alcohol. And I don't think you should ban the single malt beverages. There's other things to look at. And I looked into state law a little bit with this, and that's kind of murky too, of what cities can do when it comes to that. As for the peddlers thing that we're talking about, you got to realize you're getting complaints about people who are peddling in this city because they're doing it illegally, and they're not going to go down and get a license. They're not going to go down and get a badge. They're not doing it anyway. So the people that are complaining about these peddlers, they're not licensed people anyway, so a badge isn't going to make a difference. And as a friend said to me, anybody can make a badge. I can make a badge on my computer. I could download the city logo, put it on there, and say I'm an official peddler, and knock on as many doors as I want. And as for people who complain about peddlers, there's a couple of things you can do. Believe it or not, when I was 13, which is about 30 years ago, I sold candy door to door through Junior Achievement. And you wouldn't believe how many doors had no solicitation. So you can buy these signs, you can put them on your door. Another thing you do is don't answer your door. And I do that a lot too. But I can understand the public safety issue, but like I'm saying, these people are not going to get licenses to begin with. So I don't know what you think you're going to do with the badge, if that's going to help at all. One last thing is, I did a little research, and I know this was talked about last week, but I'll give you my side of the thing. I did a little research on Robert's rules and wearing hats and to meetings and doing public testimony. What I found, there's a great forum out there if you ever guys want to get it. It's called Robert's Rules Forum, and people throw questions at it, and then people answer it, and lawyers come on there, all kinds of people. And one of the biggest things that was said is, if anyone is being disrespectful at the podium, whether that's the clothing they're wearing or in other ways, then the chair has the right to say, stop it, sit down, whatever. As long as an article of clothing like a hat or a tie or a shirt is not disrespectful, it's well within Robert's rules. And secondly, on top of that, the only person who can make that determination is the chair of the meeting, which is Mayor Mike tonight. He would be the one that would have to make the determination that my hat was disrespectful. And the reason I say this is because I know in the olden days it was proper to take off your hat when you come into a building. But nowadays, a lot of people, it's just kind of part of what they wear. Some people wear ties. Some more people wear caps. And I remember a couple months ago, this young kid came up here. I think he was a contractor or something. And he'd probably been wearing that baseball cap all day long. You could tell. It was sweat through. And he didn't even realize it was on his head because it was part of his uniform. He wears that hat all day long. And he came up here, and when Rex asked him to take his hat off, he was confused because I don't think he even knew he had his hat on. So, like I said, as long as something, an article of clothing is not disrespectful, there's nothing wrong with wearing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that. Anybody else want to engage the council before we go on to the other topics? Thank you both for your commentary. We appreciate that. Let's move on to the consent agenda item that Councilor Karski wanted to discuss. Mark, if you'd come forward, please. It involved the Regional Wastewater System Joint Powers Agreement with the City of Brandon. Councilor Karski.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mark Cotter and the Public Works team and legal staff put a lot of time and effort into this contract, and a lot of months and a little bit of anguish too, I think. And I just didn't want this to pass with a simple consent agenda vote. I think it's worthy for Mark to make some comments about the contract, the benefits to not only Sioux Falls, but to the citizens of Brandon also.
Great. Well, thank you, Counselor. Trent Lubers and Diane Best and Tracy Turback are also here. They had extensive work on this. This is the third regional wastewater contract that we have. We have Renner, Prairie Meadows, and now Brandon. Brandon's been a customer for 20 years, and this contract will extend their relationship for another 20 years. We've been undertaking writing this contract for just over 2 years, and I will tell you that as you read through the contract, it's a very good contract. It's a fair contract for both sides. And as we are moving more and more into regional wastewater and the appropriate controls for it, we learned a lot through this contract negotiation as well. A couple of comments. So from a regional wastewater cost standpoint, there's so much that is charged per 1,000 gallons, but then there's also a one-time capacity charge that's charged whether it's a house, a commercial structure, and there's a uniform approach whether you're in Sioux Falls, Brandon, or others. You know, one of the things that we know and we'll see here in about 2 weeks is that collecting and treating wastewater is massively expensive, and you'll see the force main project that we'll let to bid on October 29th is in excess of $10 million. And when we can harness that economy of scale, Sioux Falls, Brandon, and others potentially in the future can kind of harness that economy of scale and not go it alone as regulations change and as construction costs change. A couple other points. This contract really recognized that our customers really want to have a voice, and so this contract stood up a regional wastewater planning group that meets every quarter. This last week we had our third quarter, and existing customers and area cities are attending these to really talk wastewater. This last meeting, Brandon, T, Harrisburg, and Hartford came, because at the end of the day, we're all facing some of these same changing regulations and costs. We also, with our environmental team, will help them administer their industrial pretreatment program. We do have a 20-year contract, but on we mutually have a termination clause of 3 years on each side for your out. I do want to publicly thank Brandon's mayor, their city council, city staff, and their engineering consultant. It's been a lot of work over the last 2 years, and we're happy to bring this forward to you.
Hallelujah, Mark. Thanks so much, Mark, and Councilor Karski, thanks for bringing that to the attention tonight to the citizens. Councilor Karski, would you want to make a motion to approve this item?
Please move to approve.
Thank you.
Second, Rolf.
Thank you, Councilor Rolfing. There's been a motion. It has been seconded. Yes, Councilor Staggers.
Yes, Mark, can you tell us the amount of money that's involved here?
Well, Councilor, there's published rates that we have, so much per 1,000 gallons, and we could certainly share that with you, but right now the published rate to treat wastewater is $4.25 per 1,000 gallons. Brandon does have the ability to qualify for a credit because they are going to maintain 30-day storage capacity, and that gives them a credit of about 47 cents off that published rate. So it's basically the amount of wastewater they send us in gallons. You divide that by 1,000, and it's $4.25 per 1,000 gallons, and then offset their credits.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Staggers, thank you. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Karski,
Yes.
Kiley,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach, yes, Jameson.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Thank you. Item 12.
New 2015-16 retail malt beverage license for Jackie's Restaurant LLC to be operated at Jackie's Restaurant, 1301 East Benson Road, CUP not required, pending final inspections per Fire and Health. 13 is a new 2015 retail wine license for Jackie's Restaurant LLC to be operated at Jackie's Restaurant, 1301 East Benson Road, CUP not required, pending final inspections per Fire and Health. 14 is transfer of a 2015 retail liquor license with Sunday sales certificate from Dave Coolish, Martini's Casino and Lounge, 4823 South Louise Avenue, to U.S. Hotel and Resort Management, Inc., 2320 South Louise Avenue, CUP not required. 15 is a new 2015-16 retail malt beverage license with video lottery terminals for MG Oil Company to be operated at Happy Jack's Sioux Falls 2, 4823 South Louise Avenue, CUP not required. 16, special one-day malt beverage, special one-day wine, and special one-day off-sale package wine dealer licenses for the Multicultural Center of Sioux Falls to be operated at 515 North Main Avenue for a fundraiser on December 5, 2015. 17, special one-day wine license for the Democratic Forum to be operated at the History Club, 758 South Phillips Avenue for a fundraiser on November 12, 2015. And 18, transfer of a 2015 retail liquor license, including Sunday sales certificate, from W&P of Sioux Falls, LLC, W&P of Sioux Falls, LLC, located on Lot 9A, Block 17, Dolly Farm Village Addition, to W&P of Sioux Falls, LLC, Buffalo Wild Wings, 2601 South Louise Avenue, number 100, full-service restaurant, CUP not required.
Jamie?
Good evening, Jamie Palmer with licensing. Items 12 and 13 are for a second location of Jackie's Restaurant. 14 is a transfer of the retail liquor license for a future planned restaurant. It will remain inactive until that development or that restaurant is finished. 15 is a new malt beverage license at that casino. 16 and 17 are both special one days. Item 18 is a transfer of a license. Per state law, this license must be utilized beginning November 1st for 60 days so that it can be renewed for 2016. And so we will be transferring it to their other location that is up and running so that it can be used. So when the East Dolly's Farm, the Dolly Farm location is finished, we will transfer the inactive license to that location. And many of the applicants are here if you have questions for them.
Thank you, Jamie. Yes, Councilor Karski.
Jamie, quick question. Are any of these licenses for a side-by-side location where they already have one casino operating and they're going to be opening one again right next door to it?
No.
No, thank you.
Move for approval, Anderson.
Second, Karski.
Been a motion to approve these items. It has been seconded. If no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Karski.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach. Yes. Jamison.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 19.
Deferred from the City Council meeting on 10/6/15, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at the southwest corner of West 12th Street and South Discovery Avenue from the CN Conservation District to the RA1 Apartment Residential Low Density District, including conditions as allowed in Section 16650, subsection C, placing limitations on regulations within the MD1 form, petition number 3238, 2015, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval with the following stipulation, which has been added to the ordinance. Buildings shall be no more than 1 story in height.
Jason Bieber, representing Planning and Building Services. The applicant for this project is Nick Van Overscheld. Mr. Van Overscheld has been working to revise his site to actually provide a row of twin homes on the south portion of this, adjacent to West Browning Street. Therefore, with the change in the zoning district, the request for the zoning district change, we are requesting that this be remanded back to the Planning Commission at their November 4th Planning Commission meeting.
Jason, thank you. Council?
So moved, Karski.
Thank you, Councilor.
Second, Rolfing.
Thank you very much. There's been a motion to remand this item back to the Planning Commission. If there is no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Karski.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Staggers.
No.
Anderson.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach. Yes. Jamison.
Yes.
That is passed 7-1. Thank you. Item 20.
Deferred from the City Council meetings on 4/21, 6/2/8/4, and 10/6. Second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at east and west of North Marlow Avenue and north of East Paddington Street from the AG Agriculture District to the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District. Petition number 2249, 2015, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
The applicant and owner here are John Schutte. It is located north of Marlowe Avenue and south of the eastern section of Great Bear Recreation Area. It's roughly 26.173 acres, and the purpose of this rezoning is to construct roughly 17 single-family homes, and these lots would range in size from 1.1 to 3.8 acres. This specific application we have seen a couple times. There were some concerns with the neighbors at the Planning Commission meeting with traffic. We have had significant talks with the applicant, Mr. Schutte, along with the existing developers, Stone Arch Partners, that's to the south of this property. They have agreed in writing to provide some secondary access. They are proposing to do a gravel access in the yellow there in 2015. That would be extending Motley Court to North Maynard Lane with gravel. And then they would also be graveling East Tahoe Street in the purple, and that would extend to South Highline Avenue, giving them another access onto East Madison Street. We do have Dean Lanier, the fire marshal, here to answer any questions you have with the secondary fire access.
Jason, thank you. Appreciate that. This is a second reading. So, folks, anybody in the audience want to comment on this topic? Welcome.
I'm John Schutte, and I'm actually the owner of the property. And I just wanted to bring up 2 points here this evening. And the first point is that I don't think there's anybody here in the room that would disagree that the best use for this property is single-family residences, okay? And I think that's a pretty common agreed upon in everybody in the room. And the second thing I guess I would bring up is I really don't want to be treated any differently than anybody else. I'm not asking for any exceptions. I want to be treated just like everybody else that would request a rezoning. And I know this has been before the council before. And I would love to tell you that there has been significant updates and changes since the last time that this has been before you, but unfortunately that's not the case. But what I want to bring up to you, the concern with the neighbors is access. That is a concern for me as well. I would love to have Marlowe constructed. I would love to have that completed by the Stone Arch Group. But the unfortunate thing is I don't have control over that. The Stone Arch Group is a group of 9 investors. They invested in that property right before the economic downturn in Sioux Falls. Because of that, they've struggled. They've struggled with getting things sold. They probably struggled financially. And because of that, they have not been very cooperative in improving that property. I've tried diligently to negotiate them to put improvements in that property. I've tried to buy a portion of their property to give them funds to be able to put that street in, to no avail. At one point, we did get them to the point of agreeing to installing that themselves, so I started the dirt work in my development, thinking that we were on our way to having it completed and approval. As soon as the dirt started moving, I get a phone call they had changed their mind. And so they are an unpredictable group of investors that can't agree on anything. So it is my opinion that they've used this whole rezoning process as an opportunity to get infrastructure improvements on their property and have somebody else pay for it. And that's my assessment of the situation. I give them credit. They have done Motley Court, which is wonderful. But my concern is I want to be treated like everybody else. Here, they're in control of the access. They're the ones that need the improvements to complete this, and they're still getting building permits in their development. I just want to be treated the same way as everybody else. So to conclude, everybody agrees that this is the best use for the property. And I want building permits just like the Stone Arch property people get building permits for my development.
John, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Did anybody else want to talk to the council about this particular topic? Welcome. Folks, if there's anybody else too, just come right on up and get ready. And welcome, sir.
Thank you. Craig DeWitt, resident of Canterbury Heights there, live on Paddington Trail, North Paddington Trail. Up until 2 weeks ago, our road was the only road in and out of the north section of the development there. About 2 weeks ago, they did complete, if you will, North Notley to North Maynard with a gravel road there. And that has provided one thing for us at this point, and that is that the school bus will now come into our neighborhood to pick up our children. Last winter, my daughter got frostbite on her face from having to walk from the far end of North Paddington down to North Dubuque and Tahoe. I'm happy that's remedied, and I actually talked to School Bus Inc. today. They will continue coming in through our neighborhood as long as that road is plowed. However, that's not a city street. So in talking with Van Buskirk, who manages the area, they said they've hired a private contractor to do the snow clearing. I hope that's the case. I hope it will suffice. I hope that when the city plows stop at the ends of the city streets, they don't create large piles too big for a little pickup truck to get through. In regards to the little section they did complete here a couple weeks ago, that is gravel, as was mentioned. And I was asked to speak on behalf of another neighbor who lives right there on North Notley. I myself have 5 children, very busy household. They have 4 children. One of their sons, Caleb, one of my son's best friends, he's an 8-year-old little boy. He's got bad asthma. When they moved into this home in the city limits, they expected to have city paved streets. Now they have gravel streets. Caleb has suffered more in the past 2 weeks from the gravel issues than he has all summer playing outside with my son. And that's an issue. Dana Booman, the mother, has been in contact with Van Buskirk about doing something about it. They have decided they will not do anything until possibly next spring, oiling it, providing a temporary solution. So I believe we have some Band-Aids to work on here. The proposed extension of the road, I forget, yes, on the south there, what is the blue road? Is that Tahoe? Extending over to Highline and down. I'm not real sure what that does because the traffic from the north 17 lots and also item number 21 from the west lots there, all that traffic will continue to come down Paddington. We have seen no reduction since they completed the little gravel road. Again, Rosemary is complete out to the east, complete, that's, it's been covered. There are cattle guards with padlocks on both ends of Rosemary, so I don't know how that can be used as a second access legally as well. The building permits we talked about a year and a half ago continue to go through. We have more homes building all the time now. We're far beyond 35 households in the neighborhood. Add in all of the condominiums to the south there, and I don't know what the number is, but it's got to be in the 50s or 60 households with one exit, one entrance. So again, since the last time we spoke and we're here, nothing has changed. I appreciate John. He has done us well by trying. However, nothing has changed since the last time we've spoken. When you voted correctly, we believe, to stop the zoning, I don't know how you can change your votes since nothing has changed. Thank you.
Greg, thank you as well. We appreciate it. Anybody else? Welcome, sir.
Good evening. My name is Gary Schlenker. I live on the corner of Maynard and Tahoe Street. I do have a couple of numbers, and first, but I do want to give public recognition to John as well. I think he has done as much as what he can to try to make this work. I think his intentions were great, and so John, I thank you for your communication to us as well as a community. The reality, as Craig said, is the situation hasn't really changed from when we were here 2 years ago. To take a look at the bigger picture, we too agree, I would say, speaking for myself, agree that we are for this development. We want it to go, but we ask that it's tried to be done right. And up to this point, it has been a debacle. We are still sitting with 6 dead-end streets that are city-owned. With the completion of the gravel, that knocks it down to 4, but the city's not responsible for that gravel stretch. So we are at the whim of to date, an unreliable developer relying on them to go ahead and do what they said they do. With the proposed roads coming in from Highline to Tahoe Street that funnels all the traffic still back to where my corner is at. The access to that road, currently in Canterbury Heights, there are 38 homes sold or in completion. There are 32 more lots for sale. If you add on Mr. Schuete's 17 lots that he's proposing, the 5 lots that are going to be talked about, as I understand it, in item number 21, in the Great Bears, that's 92 houses that could be developed in that area without doing anything else to the current state of the roads. When you add the Canterbury Village, which is just to the south of Tahoe Street, there are 38 homes there built or in the framing process. 8 more are having concrete work done, and there's 8 more units potentially having dirt work done for a total of 54 units that could be in there. So if you add those 2 up, you've got 146 units accessing the current paved road from what is Dubuque and Tahoe Street to this entire development area. That is a traffic concern that I guess that I would have for you. There are 47 lots that are not for sale, that as I understand from Mr. Anderson when he spoke with us, that if they sell the lots, they have to build the road. Conveniently, those 47 lots that would force the completion of the road are off the market currently today and are not, at least not for sale as of 6:30 this morning on their website. Last time when we talked about Rosemary Street being the secondary access road. And after the council meeting that we had and you voted it down, that fall they came and they straightened out the road all the way to Marlow. As Craig alluded to earlier, there are 2 cattle gates that you need to get to, plus, if you're at the right time this time of year, a herd of cattle and electrified fence. The gate to that fence is actually 30 yards to the north. That fence, there's a post right in the middle where Rosemary Street ends to get into Marlow. If something catastrophic were to have happened today, Madison Street and Highway 100 is closed. So if the access to Dubuque and Tahoe Street was blocked, maybe by the Highline wires that run over that, emergency personnel would have to go 10th Street to 6 Mile Road, past Madison Street, 1 mile north, come back 1 mile to the west, come back south, and now you're at the first cattle gate. There's a concern. Granted, you're talking about the rare possibilities of something actually happening, but it still is the environment that we exist in today. And so while I would say I support the development of this, I just ask that try to be done right so we can get so we can get the right access to the area so everybody can be safe. Thank you.
Gary, thank you as well. Very good. Folks, okay, very good. Folks, if there's anybody else who wants to speak to this item, if you just come forward up to the chair, I'd appreciate that. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Carol McDaniel. I also live on Paddington Trail. We've all met before. It's nice to see you again. I wish it was under better circumstances. Our group is the same position that we were before because, as several have stated, nothing has changed. The owner of the land or the owner of the person coming to you has changed, but that's it. And we love John. He is a wonderful man, and he has tried to work with us as much as could possibly be imagined. But again, getting nowhere with the current owners of the property. That sold us all a bill of goods that was never, I feel, going to ever come to play. And that's the part that's sad, and that's the part that the city engineers, I blame them severely, that they did not look at these situations or the building permits or the allowing these people to set up these developments and without giving the full information. They had no intention of putting in Marlow because it requires a lot of additional funds. Because of the sewer situation, they tell us, that goes the opposite direction toward Highway 100. So I believe that we were all sold a bill of goods that was never intended to be done. Yes, John should be fairly treated, and I am sorry for the position that he is in because we also would love to see that development go. We would love to see some beautiful houses up there in our area. But with that much traffic going on one road in front of Gary's house, you heard him give the numbers. All of them, every single one of those would go by his house. Now, adding the Notley is a big help for the school bus, but that's it. It does not take care of the maintenance. It is also a one lane. Now, there is no way that I want to meet the school bus on that little path or anybody else. So it's a one-way street, essentially, in whoever gets there first. So it's not a safety road by any means. Adding the piece on the Blue Road, what does that do? Nothing. Yes, it gives us an additional entrance and an exit, but after we've all gone down the same roads to get to those. We're all going by the same houses. Every one of those building, the construction trucks, et cetera, would come right past those same houses that they've been coming by for the past several years. So we just would like to let you know that we are still a group, and we are still looking for fairness, and that hoping the city can figure out a way to make the proper people do what needs to be done. Thank you.
Carol, thank you as well. Welcome.
My name is Eric Case. I'm with Stockwell Engineers. I'm representing the developer for Area A. That is also item number 20 on the agenda tonight, but I would like to say a few words, I guess, before we get to that in case this rezoning does not go as planned. But our developer obviously is pretty much contingent on Area B being developed. You know, Area A and Area B, I think Mr. Schutte did an excellent job explaining the situation with these developments, but you know, both of our developments will be meeting city standards for design and everything, and it just appears as though the Canterbury Heights is kind of a roadblock for the development of these two areas, which for our developers, meeting the design guidelines for the city, just, you know, like I said, is a hindrance to them. So,
Eric, thank you. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Todd Miller from Canterbury Heights as well. The irony that I keep hearing the repeat of is we all want this development to happen, except apparently the developers. They snookered the city engineering department to give them all the road to go to their Yellowbrook Road, I called it last time, to get to their promised land and get all their expensive lots. And then they just left the rest of us hanging. So just wanted to tell that. My family and I have lived in Sioux Falls for over 20 years, and until this zoning came up last year, I have never been to a city council meeting. So I am far from an activist. We're happy to be living in a beautiful part of the city, and we'd love to see our neighborhood develop. We want the proposed properties to be zoned as single-family residential, but we need to have the streets developed to provide safe and adequate access. Right now, Canterbury is like a one-legged stool, and tonight you are being asked to nearly double the weight it must carry. When we were here a year ago, and it was just the property in Area B that was being proposed, I said to Mike Cooper, I said, yeah, the next thing they're going to want to do is add the other 40 acres. He goes, oh, we would never do that. Right. So here we are today. And again, we want that, but because the developers were given an easy hand, they don't have any intention of doing anything. The proposal before you does not even meet the requirements for Phase 2 and 3 of Canterbury Heights approved in 2006. As we discussed last year, Phase 2 and 3 final plans approved by the city called for Highline Avenue to be gravelled and graded all the way up the right-hand side. Gravelled, graded, maintained year-round all the way to the north end in the neighborhood, along with the much shorter Tahoe stretch which they're now saying they're going to do. Okay? The city made it real explicit that they can't really enforce that. They can't enforce the time frame, and we understand that. However, now you're being asked to ignore that they got everything they wanted at that point, but they still haven't even done anywhere near the requirements to get Phase 2 and Phase 3 approved. So why in the world would you add another 66 acres feeding into a dead-end street, which is Marlow? It's a dead-end street. Nobody ever says that. Marlow is a dead-end street where you want to feed another 66 acres in. And this was in the approval 9 years ago. And after all, we're only talking about gravel. We're not talking about a huge amount of investment here. So it's just ridiculous. We'd like it to be curbed, guttered, and asphalt. Now, to back up a little bit again, John Schutte bought the property and from Pat Beckman and Scott Gilbert. He has been very active to try to work on a solution for the roads, as others said, and he did meet with us a couple of times. Councilor Anderson also has been working hard on this matter. In fact, at one point they had the agreement, an apparent agreement with Stone Arch Partners, and the city was presented, it was presented to us. We were not brought into the discussion prior to the agreement, like what would it take for you guys to be satisfied? That didn't happen. And Mike Cooper apparently agreed to vacate Highline Avenue, the very street that is supposed to be the collector street and be gravelled all the way up the neighborhood. He agreed that he would vacate that if they would do some other development on the streets. Can you put this on the video? This is a picture of the agreement that was agreed to without our input. And that agreement, they had agreed that the developers had agreed that they would do Notley in curb and gutter this year. This year they would curb and gutter Notley instead of gravel.
Todd, is there any way that you could, or Jason, can you point while Todd is speaking? The people of Sioux Falls are not going to be able to hear you, Todd. No, hang in there.
The blue part, they were going to do, okay, the sewer was going to be put in 2016, and the blue part in 2017 was going to be all curb and gutter. So we would, alas, have our entrance to a neighborhood that we were promised so long ago. The problem is none of which they're doing, and that's all great, but not even in the future were they ever still planning on doing the north-south route. Why would Mike Cooper and his group agree to give up the whole northbound road without agreement to do the other northbound road? I know there are some people said from a planning standpoint, Highline doesn't need to be there. Marlow will accomplish it in another offshoot. That's fine. But then we still, nobody, even graveling Marlow so that all the construction equipment, all the traffic could go right up north. We have said that's what we wanted. I've talked to one of the owners. These owners are very prominent people. They may have taken a beating, but I can rest assured. Steve Van Buskirk, by the way, is the president of Stone Arch Partners. We have encountered that, and they're getting vibes to these Stone Arch Partners owners are under the belief that we don't want development, which is totally incorrect. So we want to straighten out the record. We want it, I'm afraid we want it worse than the developers, because they understand the purchase agreement expires at the end of the year, and maybe they want to have other motives. I don't know. But as we indicated, we want this development to move forward, so we would compromise and say we'd remove our opposition if they would just gravel grade and do Marlow as they were supposed to have done Highline back in 2006, and maybe not everybody is in agreement with it. We certainly would like it to be tarred, but we want it gravel graded and year-round maintained and treated regularly for dust control. Notley must be treated for dust control within 10 days and regularly in the spring until it is completed in asphalt, curb, gutter by June 30th of next year. And this must be a legally binding contract certified by the attorneys. We would need acceptable signage in our current entrance instructing all construction traffic to enter on Madison Street, so that so that Marlow would in fact get used and not have everybody go exactly where they are today. A year ago we were here, and Dana Booman talked about the gravel, talked about her son having asphalt problems. We talked about the bus problem, that the kids had to make long walks. Guess what? We had a frostbite, okay? And she's still dealing with those issues today. Michelle Erpenbach's comments, this, and if I misquote, I'm sorry, but this is certainly not your best work, was referred to by the city. Mr. Jameson made a comment, something to the effect of, this is certainly not fair to allow others to scab off of other roads, was a comment that was made, and I believe that Ms. Erickson also said something about to provide a solution and certainly not gravel. These people that have a gravel road in their backyard now weren't able to come, but to have a house, hundreds of $1,000 house, and 10 years later have a gravel road put in your backyard is absurd to have happen in the city of Sioux Falls. Doesn't look to me like shaping places very well. But again, we're here to present a solution. Gravel the road, we want it tarred, but if they gravel the road, give us the entrance, gravel, and tar Notley, we want these gentlemen to get their properties developed. quality developments. And we want it, and we want that message to be clear.
Thank you, Todd. Appreciate it. Welcome.
Good evening, Ryan Campbell. I also live up in Canterbury, and most of the points I was going to make have been covered by my neighbors, so I will keep it brief. But you know, a year and a half ago when we were here, you guys did a fantastic job. You came out, you did your due diligence, you met with us, you looked at the development, and when we came back, you said, this is a travesty, this is not right, this is not how Sioux Falls should be developing itself. And we asked at that time that you hold them to account. You make them stand by the code that you have put forth as a city. And our only recourse as citizens is that you don't allow them to develop that until they stand by that and they build the road first. And we had a lot of promises last time when we came before you that approve the zoning and we will build the roads. And we all know, as this development has kind of languished, that that doesn't work. The only way that we have any leverage as citizens is for you guys to stand up for us and force them to build the roads first. Then you give them the zoning. And that's what we asked of you last year. We think you did the right thing and we appreciated that. I guess we ask that you do the same thing again today. And until the roads are done, you deny them that zoning at this time. Thank you very much.
All right, very good job. Thank you. Folks, anybody else? Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Very good testimony. Council, any motions or comments? Councilor Jameson.
A question for John, if I could, the applicant. John, just fill in a few gaps for me if you can, make sure I'm not missing anything. You are currently the owner, or are you proposed to be the owner of this development?
I am the owner of Area B.
You are the owner.
I purchased it.
Purchased it. And were you promised anything along with that purchase
that it was ready to be rezoned? It just needed to go before the city council for approval.
Do you live in?
Everything was ready when I bought it.
Do you live in Sioux Falls?
I do not. I live down by Canton. Due diligence was not done like it should have been. That's my own fault.
All right. Thank you. I would make a motion to approve.
Second, Urbanbach.
There's been a motion to approve this item. It has been seconded. Additional comments? Yes, Councilor Jameson.
Just to clarify before the fear of God goes into some of the audience members, the neighbors are right. There hasn't been a significant change. It's unfortunate. I know all of us up here want to see this go. We want to move it along. It's terrible that the developers are being held kind of hostage, but it's the way it is. There's just no way around a good decision of allowing this to go forward with that many people living in one area with these kinds of roads. It just doesn't work. So I'm just voting in the affirmative so that we can move on and take action, but I would request that you deny.
Councilor Anderson, Jr.
For over the last year, I've been meeting, since Mr. Schutte purchased the property B, I've been meeting with him and the property owners, the neighbors up there. It's a real difficult situation, but the 2.5 blocks or almost 3 blocks of Marlowe that need to be filled in, and that there is a road that is designed there, that has been our main request, is just a gravel in Marlowe. And the secondary emergency access through the cornfield was the response to that request. And then this last Notley was something to take care of the buses, but that's all it does take care of, just as what we've been explained. There's been several different agreements, and all of them have been reversed at a last moment, so that everybody is more or less not knowing exactly what is going to happen up here. Highland itself is going to be vacated, and that's due to Veterans Parkway and the development that will happen on the east side of this development here when Highway or Veterans Parkway is completed. So there's a lot of changes that are happening up here, but once again, the cooperation with the neighborhood, right now Stone Arch is still building in that area. They're building homes in the Canterbury area, and they're still building in along Madison Street. They're finishing all those townhomes or twin homes that are going in there. And it's not like they're not making money, because everything they're building up there is sold or sold immediately after. And it's just really frustrating that we can't get Marlowe just graveled in to resolve this issue. We have not only Mr. Schuette's property that he's looking to develop, but we have the property to the west of that. I believe that was the property A, which is a gated community of $1 million homes. Yes, we want this developed. We see this as being a beautiful area for our city, but unfortunately, it's not being done right. And we need to hold the people responsible to the agreements and get this done right. So I also urge you to decline this.
Councilor Bach, did you still want to speak?
I don't need to know.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Bach. Thank you. Councilor Erson?
I just have a couple questions for staff. If we deny, what's the time frame that they can come back again and apply for this? I think I know the answer. I just want to hear you say it.
6 months.
Okay. If we deny, or we can defer.
You can defer it again to see if we can work out more of an agreement. We've been working on it for a year, so.
So here's my other question then. Has Marlowe been pitched as far as wanting to be done, and what was the response? And is there anybody from Stone Arch here?
I do not believe there's anybody from Stone Arch. Let me put back up the one on the teleprompter there. As the gentleman from the neighborhood put, this is what we worked on. This is what we tried to get complete with the Stone Arch group, to do Marlowe, to pave some of these other ones. And that's why we, Mr. Cooper did agree that he would support them to vacate Highline. Well, this obviously is not happening anymore. They're not agreeing to do this. Mr. Schuette did indicate that they agreed to pave the roads, and now they've went back on that. And so we're back at the impasse of just having them proposing to gravel Marlowe and then to gravel Tahoe Street. That's all Stone Arch will agree to, and according to the ordinance for secondary fire access, I believe they're in compliance with that, and Mr. Lanier can maybe comment a little bit more on that. We just have nothing to make them do what this original intention of what we wanted them to do.
That's my other, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'm sorry. That's my concern too, is what can we do? They are over the 30 houses, and it clearly states once you get over the 30, and A and B is fantastic. It's going to be beautiful. It's great. And you would think that the Stone Arch would only want to grow that as people are traveling up there and being able to sell and buy the other lots. What can we do as a council or planning and zoning to, I don't want to use the word force because I don't think that's correct, but what can we do to have them do something about this? It's unfortunate that we have two other landowners up there that are wanting this rezone, and they are held hostage. It's extremely frustrating through this process, and we've been going at it for well over a year.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that Mr. Schuette is one landowner, and the other landowner is Stone Arch Partners, is the other rezoning request that's coming forward. So really, Mr. Schuette is the one that's being held hostage by this. You've heard him, he's negotiated, we've sat down with him, we've talked to Stone Arch, we've worked, exhausted pretty much all efforts on trying to get them to do this agreement here that's in front of you. And all they will agree to do in the end is those two gravel pieces, two pieces.
If I may ask, can they continue to build on this plan that's in front of us? All those lots that are partitioned off, can Stone Arch continue to market, sell, and build on those lands without doing any further development?
And I think I'll defer that to Mr. Lanier with fire access. I believe he could answer that question for you.
But wouldn't they come to your office for building permits?
Yes, but we wouldn't issue them building permits once the fire department says they're over a certain number of units or they don't have the secondary access. Then we put holds on the lots and not allow them to issue building permits. The only way we would issue them is if they're in compliance with the ordinance, the secondary access ordinance.
But Rosemary counts as its secondary access.
I would have to ask Dean on that one.
Okay, Dean? My question is with Rosemary done now, what threshold does that put them at as far as how many houses they can continue to build that meets your requirements?
South of Rosemary specifically is what we're talking about, correct?
Yes, whatever, all of it. I mean, I don't know what is all included in it.
The only allowance that was allowed is south of Rosemary. The secondary access with Rosemary and going north, those units, we would have to see some other things done in order to approve any development north of Rosemary. There are some exceptions to code that fire code regarding to access that can be applied, but in this case, because it's already an issue with access, those things I would recommend we come back to council to get your approval on before we press forward with that. So at this point right now, we have 30 units that were approved. We can go another 30, and at that point, fire has got to shut it down because we won't be able to extend beyond Rosemary at that point.
So they get 60 until they have to do something else other than Rosemary?
Correct.
Thank you.
Councilor, thank you as well. Before we go back to Councilor Jameson or Councilor Anderson Jr., councilors, any of the other councilors have any comments? Councilor Kiley?
Dean, secondary access, now, what does that define what a secondary access is? Whether it's curb and gutter, gravel?
For emergency access, the requirement is can it support a 75,000-pound truck? So that's the basic standard that we apply to these temporary secondary accesses.
And is that policy or is that an ordinance?
That is in policy. We are going through the 2015 code adoption process for the International Fire Code. And I'll leave it there.
Is it safe to assume that that would be a stricter regulation?
There have been recommendations on that, yes.
Quite frankly, I've got problems with gravel roads as secondary accesses, so that's my point.
Councilor, thank you. Councilor Rolfing.
Yes, it seems to me that we're getting closer and closer all the time here. Maybe it seems like we're falling a little bit farther apart, but I think we're getting closer, and there's an idea that we've just talked about that we'd like to run through. So to make it so that our developer does not have to wait 6 months on this, if we can work something out, I want to give us another month to work on this, and I'm going to make a motion to defer for 1 month to our November 17th meeting, giving us time to work on some other solutions to this, and go from there.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion to defer this item, and it has been seconded. Any discussion on the deferral only?
Mayor, you'd have to treat that as a substitute motion. Is that correct?
Okay, that would be correct.
Thank you, David. I appreciate that. So there's been a substitute motion to defer this item for, I think it's 30 days.
Yeah, to the November 17th council.
November 17th. Very good. Councilor Bach.
Question for the councilors then. What is your goal with this deferral? It's been deferred before and over and over and over again, and they've been working on it for 2 years. He whispers, I have an idea.
Sorry. I don't want to make
I don't want to defer. I'm just saying don't defer. I want to vote no. I'm going to vote no on deferral, and I'm going to vote no on the change.
Very good.
We need to start over.
Councilor Anderson Jr., any comments on the deferral?
Yes.
Okay.
The reason for the deferral is that we don't want to go 6 months. In 6 months, you're going to have winter. Mr. Schutte has done a lot of work up in that area and would like to continue moving forward. I think that just to be fair to him, when all the work that he's done, not only the physical work, but the work with the neighborhood, trying to work with the other developer, I think it might be a good idea. There's some things that we're having the city attorney take a look at, and some questions that we'll have for Public Works also, to see if there's an alternate way that we can get Marlowe graveled in. So we're asking for that time to be able to explore those couple ideals to try to move this all forward.
There has been a motion. Oh, Councilor Erson, did you want to talk on the motion to defer? There has been a motion to defer. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Karski,
No.
Kiley,
Yes.
Rothing,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Erickson,
No.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Jameson.
Yes.
The motion to defer has passed 6-2. Item 21.
21, deferred from the City Council meeting of 10/6/15, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property southwest of Great Bear Recreation Area from the AG Agriculture District to the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District, petition number 3271, 2015, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
The applicant and owner here is Stone Arch Partners. As you can see, this is located just west of the previous item. And I would also probably suggest, I don't want to speak for the applicant, but I would assume that they would like to defer also to November 17th, since these two are similar and going together.
This is a second reading, folks. Would anybody want to speak to this item?
Eric Case with Stockwell Engineers again. Yeah, given the vote on the last item, I would say we would choose to defer this item as well. Just to kind of clarify a little bit, the owner is Stone Art Group. The developer is the future owner contingent on the rezoning. So just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Eric, would you come back here, please? I'm a fairly educated guy. I didn't understand what you just said.
Okay. The current owner is Stone Art Group, which Jason alluded to. The developer or the person who will be doing the development for this property has not purchased the land. So all the development will be done contingent on this being rezoned to residential from ag. Does that clarify?
I think I got that one. Okay. Councilor Jameson, did I get that one? Yes, I did. Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Before he leaves, maybe.
Yeah, Eric, you're going to have to come back here, sir. Councilor Anderson Jr.
Now, is there a proposed deadline on the purchase of this property, or is this?
Not that I'm aware of. This is, yeah, it's just, kind of a ongoing agreement contingent on how this develops, I suppose.
Yep.
So.
Thank you, Eric. Good job. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council on this topic? Welcome, sir.
Craig DeWitt from North Paddington Trail. I guess I'm not even sure what to say about this one. It's pretty obvious what type of group we're dealing with here, that they would come to ask for zoning of an area they won't help develop. So that's all I have to say about that.
And it's very good, Craig. Welcome.
Well, again, Ryan Campbell, North Paddington. I think what he just told us is exactly what you were looking for. What way do we have to force them to do this? The only way that Stone Arch can sell that property is for them to build a road. It's pretty straightforward. They build a road, they get to sell it to the developer, and Part B gets done as well as John's part. It's all pretty pretty cut and dried when you start digging through some of the layers and the way that we're talking around this issue. A little bit disappointed at the deferral. Like you guys had mentioned, it's been going on for years. But we'll be back again in November and we can all have these same conversations. So thank you. Appreciate your time tonight.
Ryan, thank you. And folks, I'm not out of place here, I hope, but I don't think you have to go through the same conversations. This council, I know them well. I do. They are listening very, very intently to what you've said, not only 2 years ago, a year ago, tonight, and 30 days from now. So I think they do understand it. Hang in there, hang in there. Yes, welcome. Nice to have you here.
Hi there, I'm Andrea Leash. I also live on Paddington Trail, our one-way street. I just want to point out that it's kind of ridiculous that we are negotiating with our developers here in front of City Council. So I would encourage the City Council members as well as the developers who are in play to bring us to the table before the next meeting. That's all that we're asking. We're not being brought to the table to discuss these things, and then we end up discussing them here in front of you. I don't think that's the appropriate way to handle these things. So if we need to pass around contact information, our neighborhood is very good at keeping in touch with each other. You can contact one and reach all of us. So moving forward, please, as you come up with your plans, or some ideas that you have in order to make the future development happen and to get our development completed, please encourage them to bring us to the table as well. At this point, all of these discussions have been done behind closed doors without us, and we're learning about them here in front of you. So that's all I ask. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Council, any motions? Yes, Councilor Erickson.
Move to approve.
Second, Anderson.
It's been a motion to approve. It has been seconded. Councilor Erickson.
A question before I make my statement to Mr. Dave Fifley. Can we add to this particular rezone that in order to get it rezoned, you must complete Marlowe, since the current owner right now, the current owner is Stoner? So can we say, yes, this rezone will happen if you gravel Marlowe? That's the only way it will get rezoned. Because currently it's not this future developer, it's only Stoner.
Ordinance allows you to do conditions on a rezone. However, at this juncture, I would not do that for some reasons we have discussed.
And, thank you, and that's kind of what I was alluding to as well, but I wasn't sure if we could link a rezone to a different property, even though it was owned by the same group at this time, but that would be something that we as a council would send back to Planning Commission and ask them to put that negotiation in, saying, sure, we'll rezone this if you gravel and grade Marlowe first and maintain it. I think that those conditions have to be very, very specific. But before this council does something like that, we would need to kick it back to Planning and Zoning or deny it tonight and say, try again in 6 months, and you know what we want.
Mr. Mayor, if I
Yes,
might.
Councilor Mott.
Councilor Erickson, I think that is our recourse this evening, is to say we're denying this tonight, and if you want to bring it back at some point in the future and you'd like us to vote to rezone that for whatever reason, then I personally won't vote to rezone this until Marlowe is passable, at least as a haul road for construction. That would be the absolute minimum for me to vote yes on a zoning on this, and it is not currently passable as a haul road.
There has been a motion to approve. It has been seconded. Councilor Anderson Jr.
And even in discussions with Councilor Erfenbach and Councilor Kiley here a moment ago, what I was saying was that the deferral of the first item in that was to try to take one more shot at trying to come up with an agreement, or Councilor Rolfing had an ideal that our city attorney is going to have a little time to take a look at, and also we need to have a discussion with Public Works about it also, because it would be a little change in policy of what we've normally done for developments. But in this case, I think that's just the request. You know, we can do either defer it, and then if it doesn't work out, we can kill it in November, or we can do that right now. So it's up to the council. But that was the reason why we asked for the deferral on the item before this.
A roll call vote, please.
Council members Karski,
No.
Kylie,
No.
Rolfing,
No.
Staggers,
No.
Anderson,
No.
Erickson,
No.
Erpenbach,
No.
Jameson.
No.
That is failed 0-8. Item 22.
22 is second reading and ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by revising the fees subchapter of Chapter 95, Parks and Recreation.
Good evening, Jim David, Legislative Operations Manager for the City Council. For your consideration tonight is a proposed ordinance that revises aquatic fees based on the season. It is, excuse me, let me back up here. It revises the aquatic fees based on the season for all outdoor pools and the future indoor Midco Aquatic Center. All pools, indoor and outdoor, are treated equally during the summer season, which is generally between May and August. Whether you swim at Frank Olson, Laurel Oaks, or Midco Aquatic Center, you will pay the same season pass rate during the summer. The fall, winter, and spring season, higher season rates will apply to the significant longer outdoor season. Both seasons provide those economically disadvantaged with affordable options based on need. Citizens also have the option to purchase an annual season pass that will begin on May 1st of each year. This annual pass will apply at the Midco Aquatic Center for all outdoor pools. And to give you some additional detail on the rate structure, David Bixler is going to run through those.
Good evening, Dave Bixler, Budget Analyst for the City Council. The Council determined the season rates for the summer, and from that rate, we establish what the winter season rates would be due to prorating based on the length of the season. The length of the season in the wintertime is going to be about 70% of the year, and in the summertime, it's about 30% of the year. If you look at a cost of the pass per day based on that, you can see that both for the pass types, the summer and fall, winter, and spring schedule will be about the same on a per day basis. There's also a splash pass, which is a transferable pass to be redeemed only toward the cost of the admission at the Midco Aquatic Center, outdoor swimming pools, and outdoor aquatic centers. The daily admission rates apply, and it's sold in increments of no less than $50 at a 10% reduction of the face value of the pass purchased. And a splash pass can also be used across all seasons. Here are the proposed aquatic fees that we presented last week.
Gentlemen, thank you both. I appreciate it. Folks, this is a second reading. If anybody wants to speak to this item prior to the council, just come forward. And again, just state your name, and if you can keep your comments to 5 minutes or less, we'd appreciate it. Welcome.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Cheryl Rath. Several months ago, Kathy Betchelsbauer, Hugh Grogan, and I approached all members of the City Council about our concerns regarding the administration's proposed ordinance. We would like to publicly thank the councilors who met with us at different times to hear our concerns. They are Rolfing, Anderson Jr., Karski, Jameson, and Erickson. 3 of our concerns are addressed in tonight's proposed ordinance. Our major concern was the possible elimination of SNAP recipients from the free swim pass program. In tonight's proposal, free passes and free season passes for families or individuals who are residents of Sioux Falls and have an active Dakota EBT card or receive South Dakota temporary assistance for needy families, otherwise known as TANF, will continue to swim free. We were also concerned about the definition of family as only 5 individuals, and to include only children up to the age of 15. These 2 items have also been addressed in the proposal, with the definition of family as immediate family members living in the household, including step and foster children. It does not mean extended family such as grandparents, aunts, uncles, and children older than 18 years of age. Every day, I work with some of the most disadvantaged children in Sioux Falls. Their families are struggling with the basic necessities of food, shelter, and transportation. These are families that have little or no discretionary income. Let's ensure that all members of our community have access not only to our existing pools and aquatic centers, but also to the new indoor aquatic center. I urge you to support the proposed ordinance tonight. Thank you.
Michelle, thank you very much. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council on this topic? Welcome.
Bruce Danielson. When this was presented last week, I was sitting back listening to the whole first reading and all the excuses that were being made as to why there was going to be such high rates for this daily pass, and it ended up being blamed on the computer system, and that they wouldn't be able to do multiple rates for the summer versus winter versus indoor versus outdoor because it would be too confusing and they wouldn't have the programming capability to make it work. And we're sitting there trying to figure out what that meant. And I never have gotten an answer, even though I've asked a couple members to find out for me, and I'm sorry, it's been a very short week in all of this and a lot going on, but still, we have this incredibly expensive computer system, point-of-sale system, that I program systems. If you'd like some help, I'll show up and help program the computer and even do some training, because I actually do that too. And I've done it for 30-some years. So if they need some help just to make it so that we can have multiple rates, there's more than enough programmers in town that can help. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Danielson. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Clarence Koistra. I live in central Sioux Falls, and I am a Vietnam veteran. I'm here tonight to ask the council for reduced fees, to consider reduced fees for veterans at the new aquatic center at Spellberg Park. I appreciate Councilman Jameson's, your support for the veterans, but I would take issue with the comment you made recently about free passes for veterans in their service there, for bus passes there, because transportation is a necessity, whereas for free pool passes, etc., that would be a perk. Well, you tell that to over 1,000 veterans at the VA that have been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, etc., that go through there. And I can tell you, and that leads to my second point that I'd like to make. When you're diagnosed with diabetes at the VA, you have to go through classes. And I went through one of those classes approximately 3 years ago when Mr. Kelly was the director at the VA. And at that time, it was the first time I was even aware that an aquatic center was considered at Spellberg Park. And he says that the VA and probably possibly the city could work out some type of a partnership, etc. And from that, Mr. Kelly went to the Veterans Council, and he received a lot of flack from the Veterans Council. You got to recall that the veterans strongly opposed the aquatic center located there. Mayor Heather was very good. He invited the Vets Council members, and we met several occasions where we did meet to try to get everybody on board. Some adamantly opposed it for various reasons, parking at the VA, it was the VA grounds, etc. But we tried to get everybody on board, and many of us are now in support of that. However, at those meetings, what was brought up oftentimes was, are there going to be reduced fees for veterans? We brought that up. And the point at that time was that let's not get the cart before the horse. Let's build it first. No promises were made or anything like that. But I can tell you for the veterans and other people, and we think through arthritis in the pool, the Veterans Memorial Pool, we appreciate all that. And one thing that you do learn in those classes, that you control your diabetes, etc., through diet and exercise. And trying to get exercise, I would consider therapy, physical therapy, rather than a perk. But I would ask this council to reconsider fees, lower fees for veterans. Thank you very much.
Clarence, thank you as well, and thank you for your service. Folks, anybody else? Welcome. Please, Mr. Stanga, come on forward too. Go ahead,
Good evening,
sir.
Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Hugh Grogan, and I'm here to say a couple of things about the proposed pool fees. One is to thank you for the support that you've given across the board for the efforts that we've made when we questioned and raised issues about what would happen to the free passes and the reduced price passes. I'm here tonight to encourage the passage of the proposed pool fee changes with one exception and one concern. The exception is that I would ask that the definition of adult be made 18 to 54 versus the proposed 16 to 54. That would make it much more consistent with how it's with what would seem to be more of a standard thing. And the second is just a concern about the impact of the dollar fees and not having the free passes on the aquatic center. And I guess I just ask that we track that and see if there's a big reduction in the number of kids coming in who fall into those low-income categories with that addition. I'm very supportive of the amendment to provide opportunities for veterans. I think it's a small way for us to show a token of appreciation for the service of our veterans. And I want to assure you that the free and reduced provision is money well spent. It provides an opportunity for the poorest kids in our community to have access to the pools. And I think all of us would much rather see the kids using the pools than just hanging out. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. Appreciate that. Welcome.
Tim Stanga. I guess every meeting I went to on this pool issue, that everything was going to be left alone. It was all going to be done the same. And I talked to Bruce, and he said the same thing. We weren't told that the outdoor facilities, we subsidize $1.3 million every year. What is this going to be subsidized during the wintertime? I don't see anything in here about swim teams. What do they pay? Because they're going to be using it the majority of the time versus the public. I don't see anything in here for the swim teams to have to pay an additional fee to use the pool. Because I'll guarantee, if I'm swimming in that pool and they tell me that I have to move off in that lane because the swim teams are going to use it, you might as well throw me in jail because I'm going to keep swimming because that's my pool. Now, I think what we have to look at is different fees for everybody, not only the swim teams, especially, because that's who we're building this for to begin with. It isn't the public, it's the swim teams. And I've told several of the city councilors that when Johnny comes home from school, it's going to be your homework, you're going to eat supper, and mom and dad are going to say, it's time to go to bed. It ain't going to be, well, sorry, let's go swimming for an hour. That ain't going to happen. The swim teams are going to be the majority of it. And I believe Mr. Koistra, he's put his life on the line. A lot of these veterans have. I think it should be free. It should be no different than children riding the buses free during the summer. I think the vets should be able to use the facility for nothing because they put their life on the line for us to be able to have what we have today, freedom. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stanga. Yes, Don.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, Don Kearney with Parks and Rec. Appreciate the opportunity to provide a little input and feedback on the proposed rates established by City Council, or proposed by City Council tonight. The first City Council proposed indoor and outdoor daily rates. I would tell you that we're very pleased by those as proposed. We think those are very comparable to what other cities charge. And as you'll see, both with the child, adult, and the senior, while it's not at the top end of the surveys that we've done, and it's not at the bottom end, it does slide right in, kind of in the sweet spot of the overall fees that we surveyed from other communities that offer similar services. So we certainly are supportive of those daily rates. As it relates to the outdoor pass rates, as you can see, the adult rate as proposed is very similar to what other communities charge across the Midwest and in the state of South Dakota. But you'll also notice in the case of the child, the senior, the family, and the reduced, we're significantly lagging behind other communities in what they charge. And then obviously from a reduced standpoint, we don't have comparables because it's very difficult to find people that actually charge or have a reduced rate for families. The same is true with the proposed annual pass rates that we have. The adult is the closest to being what other Midwest indoor aquatic facilities charge. Then again, you'll see with the child, the senior, the family, and the reduced, we lag significantly behind those other communities. But we, again, do make some pretty good progress in the adult category. And as I mentioned on the first slide, the daily admission, which we are very supportive of. The other thing I wanted to share too is that I understand there's also an amendment to charge a small fee to use the indoor aquatic center, and certainly we would support that. Obviously, when we originally proposed the rates from the administration and the staff, we certainly believe the facility we're going to build is going to be of high quality. It's going to be a great amenity for our community, and so to have some type of fee, we think would be very positive, especially knowing that we're just starting with this new aquatic facility. We haven't lived it yet. We don't know how it's actually going to function and work, what kind of demand there's going to be. So we certainly would support that proposed amendment as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Don. Anybody else in the audience? Councilor Anderson Jr.
Mayor, I had a question for Don.
Don?
Don, one of our public speakers came in and said that there are no rates for the swim teams. Could you speak to that, please?
You bet. There absolutely are rates for the swim teams throughout the course of both of our proposal and the council's proposal. Those really have never been at issue. I think everybody understands that we do have rates. We've got lane rental rates. We've also got swimming lesson rates. We've got league fees, certification fees. All those fees are covered in this ordinance as well. But the highlight really is about the daily admission and the season pass rates.
Thanks, Don. Thanks, Councilor. Appreciate that.
Move for approval, Anderson.
Second, Erickson.
There's been a motion to approve this item. Has been seconded. Councilor Erickson.
I have an amendment, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor.
My amendment, motion to amend Section 1 definitions reduced income to read families, individuals who are residents of Sioux Falls and actively receive reduced or free school lunches, or who actively receive Medicaid benefits. And as along that same line, on the definition of adult, remove the number 16, change it to 18. On child, remove the 15 and change that to 17.
Second, Jameson.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Thank you, Councilor Anderson. There has been a motion to amend, has been seconded. Did you get that?
It's the same sheet. It's the first amendment on the sheet, and then I just changed under adult and child. The adult would be from 16 to 18, and the child would be from 15 and change it to 17. Would you like my sheet? Would that make it easier?
It would, yes.
Yeah.
I don't have that part.
Can you pass that to her, please?
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, the reason for the amendment is I gave my sheet. I got it.
Oh, okay. So
The reason for that amendment is to make it in line with the family definition that says children older than 18 years of age. So it makes the definition fall in line with what we are defining family of 18 and older is considered an adult. And so when we look at those rates, we want to make sure that those definitions are in line as well. And so an adult is clearly 18 to 54, and a child is clearly 2 to 17.
Councilor Erickson, thank you.
Did she have a second?
Yes, she did. There's a second. If there's no further discussion, vote on the amendment. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Karski,
Yes.
Kiley,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Staggers,
No.
Anderson,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach, yes, Jamison.
Yes.
That is passed 7-1. We now have an amended main motion. Yes, Councilor Ruffing.
Yes, I'd like to make another amendment, or move to have another amendment under Section 2, under the summer aquatic season fee schedule and the fall, winter, and spring aquatic season fee schedule as follows. Daily admission shall be $3, $4, and $5 in 2016, 2017, and 2018, respectively. Daily admission adult shall be $4, $5, and $6 in 2016, 17, and 18, respectively. And daily admission senior citizen shall be $3, $4, and $5 in 2016, 17, and 18, respectively.
Second.
There's been a motion to amend. The amended main motion has been seconded. Any discussion?
I'm doing this, if I could.
Yes,
I'm
Councilor
doing this
Ruffing.
because right now we're moving from $2 to $5, and I think that's too fast an increase, and so this way it feathers it in for the next 3 years.
A roll call vote, please.
Council members Karski,
Yes.
Kiley,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Staggers,
No.
Anderson,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Jamison.
Yes.
That has passed 7-1. Council, we now have an amended main motion. Any further discussion? Councilor Jamison?
Thank you. I do need to be corrected. I do stand corrected. It was pointed out that I referred to this incentive for veterans as a perk. I take note. It is a great asset for them, and I hope that they enjoy it. But I do have an amendment. Under summer aquatic season fee schedule and the fall, winter, and spring aquatic season fee schedule, add the word veteran to senior citizen and reduced income adult season pass. Under annual aquatic season fee schedule, add veteran to senior citizen and reduced income individual adult annual pass.
Second, Erickson.
There's been a motion to amend. The amended main motion has been seconded. Any discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Council members Karski,
Yes.
Kiley,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Staggers,
No.
Anderson,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Jamison.
Yes.
That has passed 7-1. Council, any further items? Councilor Karski?
Yes, Mayor, I have a motion to amend.
Yes, sir.
Lori, do you mind reading this for
No,
me?
I can sure read that.
Thank you.
Motion to amend Section 1 definitions as follows. Add definition fall, winter, and spring reduced income, which shall read, families/individuals who are residents of Sioux Falls and who actively receive reduced or free school lunches, who actively receive Medicaid benefits, receive South Dakota Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, TANF, or have an active Dakota EBT card, food stamp card, period. Section 2, under fall, winter, and spring aquatic season fee schedule, add fall, winter, and spring reduced income daily admission with a fee of $1 per person in 2016, 2017, and 2018. Under Section 2, under fall, winter, and spring aquatic season fee schedule, reduced income family season pass be amended to read fall, winter, and spring reduced income family season pass. Section 2, under fall, winter, and spring aquatic season fee schedule, senior citizen and reduced income adult season pass be amended to read senior citizen and fall, winter, and spring reduced income adult season pass. Section 2, under fall, winter, and spring aquatic fee schedule, remove free season pass.
There has been a motion to amend.
Second, Erickson.
And it has been seconded. Any discussion? Councilor Karski.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Just to explain what's going on here, because it's a long amendment, but what it's doing is really changing a few definitions. So just by design, it has to do this. And I took this idea to Jim David, our legislative and operations manager, and he helped me craft this. So I have to thank him or blame him, however you want to look at it. The intent of this amendment is, one, it costs $1 to get into the indoor pool over the fall, winter, and spring months minimum. Two, and the reason for that is, as Cheryl Rath had mentioned earlier, we did meet with her and Mr. Grogan and Kathy Brechtelsbauer, and I had mentioned that I was going to be proposing this, and Dave Bixler was present. I have a witness, and they did not feel at that time that $1 was asking too much to use the new indoor pool. Secondly, the only option, the way the proposal is right now, is that for a very small number of families, and that's those that are on TANF, the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, those are the only ones that are free under the current proposal, and that just covers a couple hundred, 300 families maybe. The free and reduced, or the reduced, those that are in EBT, et cetera, they have two choices to get into the outdoor pool, or into the indoor pool over the fall, winter, and spring months. And that's either pay $5 or buy a pass for $100. They have no reduced daily rate. They have a reduced season pass, and it's going to cost $100, and $100 is a lot of money to some of these families. So this brings them down to $1 to get into the pool for the indoor. This amendment does not touch the outdoor summer rates at all. Those families would still be free for the TANF and the EBT under the outdoor rate. So all we're doing is changing a definition so that over the fall, winter, and spring months, those that are the most needy of our families only have to pay $1 to get into the pool. Otherwise, they'd have to be paying $5 or they'd have to get a $100 pass for the season.
Councilor Karski, thank you for that explanation. Appreciate it. Yes, Councilor Jameson.
I'm just checking to make sure I'm not missing something. When you redefine those, did we need to add back in veteran in any of those definitions?
I'm getting a nod from Jim, yes.
It looks as though they may have been just oversight.
Sure.
So is that a friendly amendment to the amendment? Can we do that?
I would take that
David?
as...
And Councilor Erickson, you were the second. Are you okay with that?
Second it again.
Thank you. And we're adding veteran as well. Did you understand that, Lori? Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Jameson.
Point of
Thank
order,
you,
Mr. Mayor. Does
yes.
this change my amendment since that came first in the definition section? Does that need to be in line and streamlined in the same fashion? We should have maybe done Karski's amendment first. I guess, Mr. Fifley, question for you.
Excuse me, if we have up on the overhead the all amendments incorporated, and that would certainly include Jameson's Veterans Amendment, and it is included within this schedule. So we have them all covered.
Okay.
Councilor,
yes,
Councilor
Jim?
Erickson, your amendment does not need the change, because what happens with Councilor Karski's amendment is that he creates a brand new definition for the off-season or the fall, winter, spring, where yours just simply addresses the definition of the reduced income definition, which only applies during the summer. So you are okay with that? I mean, you're
Dead veteran then.
Yep.
David, are we okay? Thanks, buddy. A roll call vote on the amendment. This is Councilor Karski and Councilor Erickson's amendment. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Karski,
Yes.
Kiley,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Staggers,
No.
Anderson?
No.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach? Yes. Jameson?
Yes.
That has passed 6-2. We now have an amended, yes, Councilor Rolfing.
I visited with Councilor Karski about this, and I look at this right now, and I'm saying that we've got a $1 fee during the, I'm going to call it the winter months, the indoor season, for someone to go to the pool. Should we not have the same fee for the outdoor rates? And the reason being because they still have the SNAP and all that kind of stuff as part of it. Please give me some explanations of why you think it shouldn't be.
Before we do that, did you want to make a motion to that?
I wanted a little discussion before, if I could, just get an opinion.
Is it okay? All right, David. Councilor Rolfing would like thoughts on whether we should, as a city, charge a fee for the outdoor rates as well for everybody of at least $1. Councilor Karski.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Rolfing, appreciate the question. To add $1 fee to our outdoor pool over the summer months as a minimum is, again, a big change. We haven't done that. So my proposal is just we're working with something new. Let's not change the old. Let's leave the old the way it is. We've had it that way. I've made the comment before, if it's free, it's hard to take it away, and that's why I did not want to start the indoor pool out as free.
It just seems to me that if we're charging $1 to get into the big new place, we maybe should be charging $1 to get into the old plain place. Under the same situation, that's just where I'm at.
Did you want to make a motion,
I would
sir?
like to make a motion that we do that we change the, can you help me with this, Jim? What might be, where it's on this right here where it says
If you
NA, go ahead.
Yeah, no. If you look at the this Akarski's amendment, you'd basically would have to edit that amendment quite substantially. For example, right now, the way the motions are right now is that the fall, winter, spring reduced income, that would have to be changed back to reduced family individuals, reduced income, and then you have to go back and undo what you just had done.
No, I'm just talking about the daily rates, that's it.
Okay,
So I could could do it with just the daily rates in the summer schedule. I would put an amendment in to change this summer schedule pools, SNAP, TANF, Medicaid, and reduced lunch fees to $1 instead of NA. Would that do it, Jim?
Just that section 2. Yes, if that's all you want to do is just change the daily, that's
Yeah,
exactly right.
2016, 17, and
Under
18.
the summer aquatic season fee schedule, you would have the $1 daily.
Thanks, Jim. Councilor, anybody? That is failed for lack of a second. We now have an amended main motion. Any further discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Council members Karski,
Yes.
Kiley,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Jameson.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Thank you, Council. Item 23.
Second reading and ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, correcting legal descriptions of ordinance number 58-15.
Good evening, Chad Heavey with the Engineering Division of Public Works. Tonight's ordinance corrects 8 legal descriptions listed incorrectly in the Veterans Parkway renaming ordinance.
Thank you, Chad. Folks, this is a second reading. Anybody want to talk to this item?
Move for approval, Anderson.
Did you actually want to talk to this item, Mr. Dan? Please come forward, sir.
Oh, sorry.
Bruce Danielson. Back on July 7th when this passed, I stood up here and said, what's the rush? There's all kinds of mistakes we've already been finding in other things like this, and this just got jammed in down our throats, and, well, everything's all just wonderful. It's all done. And so I see in here there's a whereas 8 of the legal descriptions as set forth in the ordinance number 5815 were not accurate. How many times do I have to come up here and look at this rushed paperwork that comes through here, and then we have to come back and fix it again? And it makes me think of the North Phillips land sale, that this is the same situation. That land sale is not legal, and it still hasn't come before this board to be voted on. So if you're going to fix 8 addresses on a road that should have never been renamed, when are we going to make that land sale up on North Phillips legal? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Danielson. Council.
Move for approval, Anderson.
Second, Rolfing.
On a motion to approve this item has been seconded. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Karski,
Yes.
Kiley,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Jameson.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 24.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by adding definitions to Chapter 70, General Provisions, and adding sections to Chapter 76, Traffic Regulations, Subchapter Miscellaneous Driving Rules, restricting the use of wireless communication devices.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor
If I might,
Erbach, please.
I'm going to run through the first reading presentation, and before I do that, I'm going to start with just a couple of quick stories that I've heard just recently. One, a woman from work stopped me in the cafeteria the other day and said to me, I need to talk to you. I need to tell you the story. And she was driving legally down 41st Street when a car that she clearly saw the driver talking on the telephone, the car sideswiped her and kept driving. Clearly, the gentleman didn't know that he'd even hit another car while he's talking on the phone. The second example I've heard of just recently is a school bus from School Bus Inc. here in Sioux Falls was recently rear-ended by a car that was traveling at 30 miles an hour. No skid marks, because the students in the back of the bus could see that the woman who was driving the car was talking on the phone and had no idea there was a school bus in front of her until she hit it head-on. And then the third thing I'd like to remind you is yesterday's editorial in the Argus Leader talks very eloquently about the reason that we need to consider this ban on handheld devices and that this should be passed by council. We're first going to look at a couple of studies that we've found. The University of California in Berkeley, California, as you remember, was one of the first states in the country to ban handheld devices while driving. And there are actually Sioux Falls residents who drive in California say they feel much safer there than they do in their hometown. The University of California Berkeley study on this slide covers a broad period of time, both before and after the ban, and shows dramatic decreases in fatalities and injuries in crashes. Second study, the Virginia Tech Transportation Institute study that's on this slide shows that common sense, it shows what common sense really already tells us. When we dial a phone or look up a contact or send a text, we take our eyes off the road for a dangerously long period of time. Text messaging, browsing, and dialing result in drivers taking off their roads and their eyes off the road and increases crash risks by 3 times. 14 states and the District of Columbia have already banned the use of handheld electronics while driving. If you do the math and include the numerous cities where this ban is already in place, more than half the licensed drivers in the United States are already under a ban like the one proposed in this ordinance. More than half the drivers in the United States are already driving with this ban that is proposed this evening. Banning handheld devices is a progressive, forward-thinking attitude that appeals to the same people and businesses that our community wants to recruit to move here. We claim as a community to be open and welcoming to corporations and professionals from other parts of the country. This is one more step in making our community a safer place for them to make their new homes. And as it noted on the slide that's on the screen now, we led the state in the texting ban by establishing it in 2012. Other cities followed us very quickly after that, and the state followed us in 2014. Rapid City was actually, and then we'll look at just real quickly the enforcement efforts in Sioux Falls. We know that between 75 and 80% of people will comply with the law just simply because it is the law. And so our enforcement efforts are shown on the screen at this point. The city of Rapid City then followed us and established a texting ban just in 2014 and really went after enforcing that texting ban. And their enforcement statistics on the screen now are pretty interesting. They really went after it. You've seen video of the stings that they did with texting and driving. They issued a lot of warning tickets that first year, and really their efforts paid off. As you see, their numbers for this year are much lower. I'm going to read just very briefly the wording of the way that the amendment would be to the existing ordinance, and then we can have a conversation about it. First, we'll define what a hands-free mode of operation is. It's the means by which a user engages in conversation without the use of either hand to activate, deactivate, or initiate a function of the electronic communication device. The prohibition is on the use of electric communication devices. No person may operate or be in actual physical control of a motor vehicle in motion or a part of traffic, which means being at a stop sign, while using a handheld electronic communication device to engage in a call or in any other use of the device. Exceptions include the device being used in the reasonable belief that a person's life or safety is in immediate danger, and if it's an emergency vehicle while in the performance of official duties. Other exceptions are to report illegal activity to a law enforcement agency, to communicate with the emergency response operator, fire department, law enforcement, hospital, doctor's office, health clinic, other emergency situations. And also the hands-free mode of operation is also part of the exception. That would be Bluetooth and those kinds of alternatives. Also, exceptions would be as a GPS or navigation device. As long as the device is affixed to the motor vehicle, you're fine doing that. And the other would be to transmit or receive messages on the non-cellular two-way radio with one hand. Now, as you know, this proposed ordinance is the result of the work of a large group of citizens in Sioux Falls. You'd look at this group of business leaders, and the list includes leaders and owners of prominent corporate entities. If you want to talk about education, Augustana University and the University of Sioux Falls are on the list. Would you go back one, please? Thanks. Supporting this ban in an effort to promote the safety of their students who come here from all over the globe. There are fitness groups, safety organizations, nonprofits, all are included. Now you can switch. And if you want to talk politics, the group of individuals supporting the ban includes both sides of the aisle. Prominent Republicans and Democrats are behind this, as well as 6 retired judges, including a retired Supreme Court justice who spoke to us last week, 2 former state's attorneys, former city councilors and mayors, and an amazing array of business leaders. They all support this proposal because it's not a political issue and it shouldn't be on the ballot because it is a public safety issue. And as the Argus leader said so eloquently yesterday, distracted, reckless, dangerous driving of any type is not acceptable. But let's address the largest distractor first, and that is the phone. I'd be open to questions and I would make a motion to set the date of second reading for November 10th.
I'll second it.
There's been a motion to have a second reading on November 10th. It has been seconded. Any discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Council members Karski,
No.
Kiley,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Staggers,
No.
Anderson,
No.
Erickson,
No.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Jameson.
No.
That has failed 3-5. Item 24. 25.
25 is first reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending Chapter 38 of the Code of Ordinances of the city pertaining to elections. And Mayor, I can address that, please.
Thank you, Lori.
At the 4 o'clock informational meeting, I presented a PowerPoint presentation on the changes to Chapter 38, our election ordinance. This is a result of changes that were made in 2007 to the campaign finance requirements per the state law. What we are proposing to do, or I am proposing, is to amend Chapter 38 elections and change the number of sections from 40 down to 12. Those 28 sections that are removed are actually verbatim language that is taken out of Chapter 1227. Our proposal is to keep only those that are unique to Sioux Falls, those ordinances. Otherwise, we would reference Chapter 1227 of the state law. The state law does authorize the city to adopt the provisions of Chapter 1227. I will give a more detailed presentation at the second reading if so requested, but at this time I would ask for a motion to set a second reading for Monday, November 2nd.
It's been a motion to set a, would anybody want to make that motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Jamison. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Councilor Erson. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Karski,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Ralphing,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Anderson, Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Jamison.
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 26.
26 is first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota rezoning property at 6601 South Hemmingstone Trail from the RS Single Family Residential Suburban and RD1 Twin Home Duplex Residential Suburban Districts to the Recreation District. Petition number 3335, 2015, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
Jason Bieber representing Planning and Building Services. This is an application by the City of Sioux Falls Parks and Rec Department. It's roughly 2.51 acres in size. It is located south of West 69th Street and east of South Louise Avenue. And the purpose of this is to continue construction of the Prairie Hills West Park.
Thank you, Jason. Would anybody want to set a date of hearing and second reading for November 2nd?
So moved, Karski.
Second, Jamison.
Been a motion to set that date of hearing and has been seconded. Thank you, councilors. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Karski,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Ralphing,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Jamison.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 27.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota rezoning property at the southeast corner of East 41st Street and South Veterans Parkway from the RA2 Apartment Residential Moderate Density and C3 Commercial Community Districts to the RA3 Apartment Residential High Density District. Petition number 3456, 2015, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
The applicant here is Chuck Moss. The owner is Valley Investors, LLC. It is located at the southeast corner of East 41st Street and South Veterans Parkway. It's roughly 8.5 acres in size. And the purpose of this is to construct an apartment residential development.
Thank you, Jason. Folks, would anybody want to set a date of hearing and second reading for Monday, November 2nd?
So moved.
So moved. Second,
Erickson
Kylie.
did that, seconded by Councilor Kylie. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Karski,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Ralphing,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Jamison.
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 8-0. Item 28.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota rezoning property at 1600 to 1700 West Russell Street from the C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar and C3 Commercial Community Districts to the C4 Commercial Regional District. Petition number 3494, 2015, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
The applicant here is Lanny Arwinger. The owner is DLC Holdings, LLC. It is located out by the new event center just across the street from the Sheraton Hotel. It is roughly 4.7 acres in size. And the purpose of this is the continuing construction of the Badlands Pond development. And they would like to move forward then and do a master sign plan for this entire development that will go in front of the Planning Commission if this is rezoned to C4.
Thank you, Jason.
Mayor, if I could recuse myself.
Yes, thank you. Councilor Jamison is going to recuse himself from this item. Yes, Councilor Anderson Jr.
Move to set the date of hearing for the second reading, November 2nd, 2015 at 7 p.m.
Second, Erickson.
It's been a motion to set that date of hearing, and has been seconded. Councilor Erpenbach.
Thank you. I just want to make it clear, and I want to understand as well, that by changing this zoning, what are the other things we're opening this property up to, in addition to this plan?
The change from the existing C3 to the C4 zoning would be just the size. They'd be allowed to do unlimited size from the 75,000 square feet that they're limited to now.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Rolfing.
But they would still have parking regulations and all that kind of stuff that goes with
Correct.
C4.
Yeah.
So they couldn't fill the whole 4 acres up with building and.
So they're pretty close to their the parking that they have is about what they need for the building. So there's not a lot of room to construct anything else.
Thank you.
So.
Councilor Anderson Jr.
I'd say most of this is similar to what we did here a little bit ago with a development on 41st and Duluth, is that we're giving the business the opportunity to do more things with signage and parking in that area.
Thank you, councilors. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Karski.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Anderson. Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach. Yes.
That has passed 7-0. Item 29.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 504 and 508 South Van Ness Avenue from the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District to the I-1 Light Industrial District. Petition number 3499, 2015, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
The applicant and owner here is Orly Brendy. As you can see, it's the existing site currently has a house and 2 garages on it. The purpose of this specific rezoning is to actually tear down the existing house and leave the 2 garages and use them for storage.
Thanks, Jason. Yes, Councilor Karski.
That would allow other storage buildings to be built there too, I'm assuming then, correct?
They could in the future do, self-storage mini warehousing there if they would like to.
They could?
They could, yes, correct.
Yeah.
Council, anybody want to set a date of hearing and second reading for Monday, November 2nd for this item?
So move, Anderson.
Councilor Anderson Jr. Made that motion. Councilor Erickson seconded it. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Karski.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Rolfing. Staggers.
Yes.
Anderson. Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach. Yes. Jameson.
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Item 30.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 3210 South Summit Avenue from the RD1 Twin Home Duplex Residential Suburban District to the C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar District, petition number 3500, 2015, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
The applicant here is Dick Dempster. The owner is Graham Automotive. Is located north of West 41st and east of South Summit Avenue. It's roughly 0.17 acres in size. And they are looking to construct additional sales display areas for the existing Graham dealership. They are looking at demolishing the existing building and constructing another building in the northeast corner, and then sales and display to the west and to the north of that.
Thank you, Jason. Councilors, yes, Councilor Erpenbach.
Question, Jason, does this require some sort of neighborhood meeting since it's, again, in that area where we're, walking that fine line between commercial and neighborhood?
It does not. We don't require neighborhood meetings. We strongly suggest them. We did only hear from one person at the Planning Commission meeting, a realtor who sounded like she was more concerned with the removal of affordable housing, including the Billion lot was her main issue. Otherwise, we didn't hear anything from any other neighbors, and nobody else showed up at the Planning Commission.
Right, and I think that's all of our concern is the affordable housing being taken away, but it does add to property values in that area if you already own it as rental or whatever. So I just didn't know if there were real residents that were concerned, so thank you.
Councilor, thank you. Councilor Rolfing.
Yes, Jason, as part of that, did we send letters out?
Yeah, we send letters out within 300 feet. So.
That's right. That's what I want to know. Thank you.
Councilors, thank you. Anybody want to set a date of hearing and second reading for Monday, November 2nd?
So moved, Erpenbach.
Second, Rolfing.
Thank you, councilors. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Karski.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Jameson.
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Item 31.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at northeast corner of West 22nd Street and South Ellis Road from the LW Live Work District to the RS Single Family Residential Suburban and RD2 Townhome Residential Suburban Districts. Petition number 3504, 2015, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
The applicant and owner here is Ronning Companies. It is located at the northeast corner of 22nd and South T. Ellis Road. It's roughly 14.9 acres, and the purpose of this rezoning is to construct a single-family twin home and townhome residential development.
Jason, thank you. Councilor Rolfing.
Concern here would be, this is probably a place where some commercial is going to go in. Where are we projecting to put some commercial in this area?
On this particular intersection, we don't have any commercial planned because 22nd would be a collector, so it'd be more of office on the corner. Live work is what it was zoned prior, but it looks like Ronning Companies feels that it'd be better used for multifamily. We'll have some commercial on 26th and T. Ellis. They've constructed a strip center, but on 22nd, it's not quite as busy of a street as 26th or 41st or 12th.
Okay.
Move to set the second reading for Monday, November 2nd, 7 p.m.
Second.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to set the date of hearing, seconded by Councilor Rolfing. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Karski.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Jameson.
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Item 32.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at the southwest corner of West 53rd Street and South Louise Avenue from the O Office District to the C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar District, petition number 3510, 2015, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
The applicant here is Justin Laird, and the owner is Bob Winkles. It's located at the southwest corner of 53rd and South Louise Avenue, just north of 57th and Louise. It's roughly 0.64 acres, and the purpose of this rezoning is for future commercial development. Right now they're showing kind of a restaurant-style concept plan is what they're proposing for the site.
Thanks, Jason.
Move to set the date of hearing November 2nd.
Second, Karski.
Councilor Erickson has made that motion to set the date of hearing, seconded by Councilor Karski. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Karski.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Jameson.
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Item 33.
A resolution of the City of Sioux Falls approving the preliminary plan of Amani Ridge. Planning Commission recommends approval.
The applicant here is Eric Case, the owner of Stone Arch Partners. This one might look a little familiar. We had the rezoning that was earlier in the night. It's located southwest of Great Bear. It's roughly 41.2 acres, and they're still proposing to construct the 8 single-family homes. And water and sewer will be extended from the east, and the development will also have access to Markham Street.
Did anyone in the audience want to speak to this item? Councilor Bach?
We did vote this down, so is this appropriate to even consider a point of order, I guess is what I'm asking.
David had recommended you just vote this one down as well.
I would move approval then.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you both. Appreciate that. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Karski.
No.
Kylie.
No.
Rolfing.
No.
Staggers.
No.
Anderson.
No.
Erickson.
No.
Erpenbach.
No.
Jameson.
No.
That has failed 0-8. Item 34.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a professional architectural and engineering design services agreement between the city and Coke Hazard for the Sioux Falls Administrative Office Building, along with other documents, amendments, change orders, or other instruments as may be deemed necessary and appropriate, consistent with the terms of the agreement.
Sue, welcome.
Good evening. Sue Quanbeck-Etten, Director of Central Services.
I'm here tonight with Karen Leonard from the City Attorney's Office and also Tracy Turback from the Finance Office to do a short presentation about the A&E contract. As you will recall, we went through a formal RFP process earlier this summer. We received 10 proposals, and Coke Hazard rose to the top with their expertise, personnel, and the competitive fee. The architect we'll be working with is Keith Thompson, who is here tonight, if you have any questions for him. Coke Hazard is the best fit for this project. They have significant relevant office expertise. Like I said, their proposal included a competitive fee, and their lead architect has significant percentage of time to dedicate to this very important project for the City of Sioux Falls. Just for point of clarification, the project referred to in the contract refers to the construction of a new city administrative office building located north of the city-owned 8th and Dakota ramp between 8th and 6th Streets. The project also will include a parking lot, landscaping, and potentially a skywalk from the building to the city ramp. We do have a good general idea of the departments that we believe will be a good fit for the building, and we will work with Coke Hazard to flesh out those program ideas. These exhibits will be prepared post-contract execution with the city's architect and construction manager, mutually agreeing upon the program, budget, and schedule. We do plan to build an energy-efficient building designed to meet basic LEED certification requirements. And at this time, I'm going to turn over the presentation to Karen Leonard, our Chief Assistant Attorney, who will walk us through the contract phases.
Thank you, Sue. Welcome, Karen.
Hi, my name is Karen Leonard. I'm a Deputy City Attorney, and I've been working on this contract. I have been asked to go through the architect services with you. There are 2 phases to this contract. The first phase will deal with 2 subparts to it. And we are using a phased approach. The contract does expressly state that we can terminate the contract if the council chooses not to proceed. Under the subparts of phase 1 is programming and schematic design. The program is going to be, it's defined as the owner's conceptual ideas, and they will be further developed and become the formal program of the project. Once the program is established, we will work with that information from the program upon which the schematic design documents will be prepared. The schematic design is the preliminary design illustrating the scale and relationship of the project components, and the schematic design then replaces the program. In phase 2, we have 4 subparts, and so we take the schematic design, and each one of these builds off of each other. We take the criteria and parameters from the schematic design to create the design development documents, and this will be a more detailed plan consisting of drawings, plans, sections, elevations, typical construction detail, layouts of building systems as to architectural, structural, mechanical, and electrical systems. And once approved by all the parties, the design development documents will replace the schematic design. At the conclusion of the design development, the parties will meet to understand the cost of the work will be established through the GMP package. And based on the design development documents and the creation of the cost of the work, the GMP package will establish the construction documents by setting forth the parameters of the construction documents. The construction documents must conform to the GMP, and the construction documents describe the work necessary to bid and construct the project. The next step will be that the construction documents will be released for bidding, and then the last phase is the construction itself, and that will commence with the owner issuing a notice to proceed with the work to the construction manager. There are two phases, and under phase 1, for the two subparts, the payment to the architect fee will be a lump sum payment for phase 1 of $85,000. Under phase 2, the 4 subparts will be divided up, their compensation will be divided up, but they will get paid based on a percentage of the guaranteed maximum price. And here it was agreed to at 4.85% of the guaranteed maximum price. And to refresh your memory on what the guaranteed maximum price is, that will be determined upon completion of the design development in phase 2, and it is established by joint agreement among the city, the architect, and the construction manager. The guaranteed maximum price will include the total cost of the work to construct the project, and it will also include the construction manager's fee. The GMP is only one element of what will make up the project budget. The other elements of the project budget may include the architect fees and expenses, soil exploration fees, legal fees, furniture, fixture, and equipment purchases, the owner's representative fees, and other non-construction costs. And last, I want to address that the architect, in addition to their fees, will also be paid reimbursable expenses. Those will include transportation and authorized travel, telecommunication services, printing of construction documents, postage, handling and delivery renderings, taxes on the basic services. I will now turn it over to Tracy Turbeck, who will describe the next steps.
Thank you, Karen. Tracy, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you, Karen. The resolution before you tonight, of course, involves only the agreement with the architect. But as we've talked about before, there are a number of steps in this process. The architect engagement is really the first of a number of gates we go through. And as Karen described, the first phase of that contract with the architect will get us to the completion of the schematic design when we can know what the project will look like and have a very reliable estimate of what it will cost. We've talked about some of the other milestones that will be coming up. When we were last before you with a project update in mid-September, we talked about some of these milestones, but they are very important, and I think it bears repeating just so that we can be clear about what's to come. We expect very likely in November to bring before the council a construction manager at risk contract. That RFP process and selection process has been completed. Councilor Kiley has been involved in that process. That was just interviews were conducted last week, and so we're now in the process of negotiating a contract to bring before you for the construction manager at risk. And as I say, that's likely to come before the council in November. And that contract will be structured very similar to the architect contract, so that we will have the schematic design phase of the work completed by the architect and by the construction manager. First quarter of 2016 is what we're expecting. And then there'll be another key gate to make a determination as to whether or not we proceed with the project to actually engage to have the building constructed. Also coming up in the near future will be contracts with a financial advisory services firm as well as a bond counsel. Those are two key players in our financing team. We want to have those folks under contract and ready to go so that we can proceed again at the first quarter of next year should the council decide to move forward with the project. As I mentioned, the schematic design phase of this office building project we are expecting to be completed in first quarter of 2016. So once we have the architect on board, presumably after tonight, should you approve that, in November we'll get the construction manager on board, and they will, along with the city, proceed to complete that schematic design phase by the first quarter of next year. And again, that really, in layman's terms, tells us what will the project look like and what will it cost. And those are two very key pieces of information that you folks need to decide whether or not we will move forward with the project. And once we reach that point, if there's a favorable determination to continue moving forward with the project, then we will also in the first quarter of 2016 be back to seek council authorization to approve proceeding with the project and to issue bonds. One last comment I'll make, just as a side note, relative to the financial advisory and bond counsel services. As you folks know, we're also on somewhat of a parallel track with a parking ramp project that we're intending to finance with bonds. And so those contracts will contemplate doing either one of those, either that project or this one, or potentially both. So we hope to gain some efficiencies if these projects continue to run in terms of the timing on parallel tracks. We will have both those team members for both projects in place. With that, I know Sue and Karen and I will stand by for any questions you have. As Sue mentioned, Keith is here from Coke Hazard, and Aaron Bovenkamp, project manager, is here as well. So,
thank you all. We appreciate that. Is there anybody in the audience who wants to speak to this item? Welcome.
My name's Bruce Danielson. I'm up here again tonight. And I just wanted to show you what 105 pages of a contract looks like. I emailed all of this to you the other day as soon as I got a hold of it, just to see what kind of comments I would get back, and also just make sure you guys had a chance to read the whole 105 pages. A few of us actually did. And with these 105 pages, it includes a contract we're discussing. And I'll ask all of you, have you actually read it? You've had a lot to read and study this weekend. We have a meeting that was shoved up a day, and so you had that much less time to work on anything. And so, did any of the contract make sense to you if you did have a chance to read it? I did send in the email 2 clauses that bothered me a lot. But looking at the pages near the end of the admin building contract is useful to us. I just handed out 13 questions because it shows us in the admin building contract that it's the dirty or working copy. And it helped us understand the differences between the event center contract and this one. Now, that was the Mortensen contract. This is Coke Hazards. There's some differences going on here, but essentially it's the same contract, only more restrictive. It shows, among other things, how they inserted sections 12.1.1 and 12.1.2. These sections say it will be secret and the architect cannot talk about it. We are barred from copying this contract or printing it per this red line advisory. I mean, that's actually in here. And so, if you're going to arrest me, arrest me. But we printed it out. We're going to start asking more of these questions. Our city attorney is good at this tactic if we expose stuff that seems to be hidden. Other offensive transparency items were also added by the city. Look at these 2 contracts. The most offensive non-transparency items were added to this document by the city. They don't want you guys to know anything. They don't want us to know anything. They don't want the people at Sioux Falls to know anything. And we want to know what's so top secret about a building. So it's not even standard stuff in the contract template. They just added this stuff themselves. Obvious proof they are actively endeavoring to make this close to all oversight. Apparently the clauses carried over from the event center contract were not tight enough to hide information, so the city had to add more restrictions. The clauses 12.1.1 and 12.1.2 and more give the city exclusive authority to talk about the project. It gags the construction manager and the architect and other admin building parties as in the event center contract. This is similar to the event center contract in sections 11.5.15 and 11.5.16, but worse. It also lets the city mark anything they wish confidential, and as such, no one can disclose it. Where are the hard and fast rules about what is confidential? Oh, that's right, there aren't any. It seems to me tonight is the night the council either affirmatively demands that the public and the council be allowed to know information about the project, or they hand over the authority to the city and affirmatively give up their and the public's right to know. It's up to you people tonight to defer this, allow yourselves to read the 105-page contract, understand what's in it, see if you can get any of those 13 questions answered, and see if we can actually get to the point of knowing even simple things like change orders. And what happens to the money, it's up there on the list for you. What happens to the money from the change orders? And does that, when a change order gets put in, and this is something that if you've been involved in building projects, I've done general work, I've done subcontracting work, and change orders come along. And that money, usually there's a balancing in the end to say, did the city come out or did the contract come out with the change orders? And who got the benefit of the change orders? And that's all we're asking in the audits that I asked for the other day when I was here. And I'm going to keep asking as each one of these come up. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Danielson. Appreciate that. Council? Yes, Councilor Kiley.
First of all, could Karen or Aaron or Sue respond to some of Mr. Danielson's concerns here, please?
Thank you, Karen Leonard, Deputy City Attorney. And I appreciate the comments made by Mr. Danielson. First, he referenced that this contract is similar to Mortenson's contract. Just as a point of clarification, this is an architect contract. The Mortenson contract was a construction manager at risk contract. So there are two different contracts, two different section numbers. So I don't want that to be a confusion there. Secondly, in terms of the confidential nature, sections 12.1.1 and 12.1.2, these contracts are based on template language from the American Institute of Architects, and they are routinely revised. And because we are working with an architect and a public body, we made it very clear in our documents that we are bound by state open record laws, and that there are some exemptions in the state open record laws, such as proprietary information or copyrighted material, as an architect would have copyrighted rights to their drawings and whatnot, that they can mark confidential, and those would be exempt from being passed on to the public under the open records law. Now, we put the onus in the contract on the architect to let us know what they deem to be confidential, and then we will look at it and compare it to state law and make sure it fits, and both parties have to agree to it, and then that would be marked. So that if there was an open record request, we would go ahead and release that portion of the contract that is not deemed confidential. So that is very standard. Oftentimes these AIA templates are used in the private business and sector, and they wouldn't have to deal with what we do as a public body. So that is the reason for that. Are there any other particular questions that you would like me to address?
No, I think that does a fair job, unless any of the other councilors would have questions.
Councilor Erickson?
Yeah. Turn on my microphone. Just to follow up to that.
Sure.
Was this, since they are different contracts, is this the way it's written similar to what was done in the event center for the architect then?
Yes, it was written in the event center and also the aquatic center contracts. So where we've used this form of methodology with a construction manager at risk and an architect also working on these contracts, this language is in those.
It's similar. We're doing the same thing that has been done with those other buildings. Thank you for answering.
Councilor Erickson, thanks for asking that. Councilor Stigers.
Some time ago, I remember that a number was presented to the city council for, rough estimate of how much this is going to cost city taxpayers, this administrative building. And, I can't remember the number right now. Can you give us a number on how much this is going to be?
I'm going to let Tracy Turbeck answer that for you. Thank you.
Tracy Turback with the Finance Office. There has not been a cost estimate provided for this particular project, and that really is the point of the schematic design process, is to develop the project and the plan for the project to the point where we can determine a reasonable, reliable cost estimate. So come first quarter of next year, should this contract and eventually the construction manager contract be approved, we will be able to answer that question for you. Not only what will it cost, but give you a much better picture of what the project will look like.
Yeah, I guess it's important for the city council to know as soon as possible, what the possible, how much we're going to be paying for this. And I don't know if anybody else on the city council remembers a number. I remember this number, $4 million or something. No, everybody's shaking their head no. Oh, okay.
There was
Nobody's.
no number.
But it seems like we should have a number as soon as possible so we can, know if we're making a good decision here.
I certainly agree. It's important to have a number, but it's important to have a reliable number, and that's what our intention is to have the architect and the construction manager work with us over the next several months to determine what that cost estimate is. And the only way to do that is to engage these professionals that can really tell us what it will take to construct the building that we need.
Awesome.
We have to spend a little money, I guess, to answer those questions is kind of the bottom line, Counselor.
So January's been mentioned, early next year has been mentioned as when we're going to get some more information. Is that fair to say then we can look forward to getting some numbers around January of 2016?
Sometime during that first quarter of 2016.
Yay.
Before we would come back to you and ask you to appropriate dollars or authorize bonds to be sold for the project, I think it's only fair to you and to the public to know and have a really good, reliable cost estimate as to what the project will cost and what it will take in terms of a bond issue to pay for that. So before we move beyond the schematic design phase, which will give us that estimate, we'll be back before you with that answer.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Jameson.
Tracy, if you could stay first, I want to make sure I'm reading it right. Is it, could you just, the fee that the city would be paying for the architectural design work, is that $85,000?
The phase one, to get us to the end of the schematic design process will cost $85,000. That's right.
And then just next sequence would be the contract manager at risk, and that would be another fee that would be, and
right, and as I mentioned, that contract will be structured in a similar fashion where we've got a fee to get us to the end of schematic design, so that we'll have the preliminary cost for the architect to complete the schematic design, an initial cost for the construction manager to complete the schematic design, and then we're at a point where we have that reliable cost estimate without a commitment to move forward until you folks make that decision.
Gotcha, I think
that makes sense.
Thanks.
Councilor Karski.
Thank you. And Councilor Jameson, that was kind of my question. We begin with an $85,000 fee. It's pretty much non-refundable. That's what we're paying the architect to draw up the design of the building.
The preliminary design, right.
And then it's he gets 4.8% of the costs for being the architect on the project if we go into phase two. Plus, we pay all expenses. From that last slide that I saw, I mean, we're paying for postage and travel and whatever. Is that a standard way to do an architectural contract? We don't just say we'll pay you X and.
I think it's very standard, and certainly the others on the team can address this as well. But I think it's customary for architects to be paid a percentage of the cost of the project. I don't think that's anything out of the ordinary whatsoever. I also think it's very typical to have a contract where their out-of-pocket expenses are also reimbursed. And I believe Karen can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's just a straight pass-through. There is no markup. Sometimes you might see that in contracts where reimbursables have a markup, but I don't believe that's the case here.
Okay, I went into the wrong business.
Well, I don't know. I got my insurance bill last week. I think you may be
on. Tracy Trebek, thank you. All right, Councilor. Councilor Erpenbach.
It's hard.
I need to talk to Karen just a little bit. I need to break down this really scary language that we're looking at, you know, the 150 pages and all the top secret and the gag order and all of that. I'm really concerned that this group of highly intelligent people and the city administration are quite honestly, I'm just tired of being dragged through the mud. I'm tired of being told how stupid we are and that we can't keep track of contracts and that our people aren't doing a good job. I'm really, really tired of it. I want you to talk again, and you said it earlier, I want you to talk very clearly about state open meeting laws and what those requirements are for contracts of this nature. That tell me exactly what you're going to do to protect us as our employee, and when I say us, I mean the citizens of Sioux Falls. What are you going to do to make sure that this is done in a legal and open way that follows state open meeting laws?
Well, thank you, Councilor Erpenbach. You know, our number one duty as a city employee or an elected official is to protect the taxpayer dollar. And so through contract negotiation, I do believe that we've done that. I did write down some comparison numbers so that you could understand that, yes, there is a lump sum fee being paid, Councilor Karski, and also a percentage of the guaranteed maximum price of 4.85% for their fee. But looking back, you know, the architect was compensated in the event center. They received 6.2% of the GMP, and also in the aquatic center fee, it was 6.75. I think that we have really protected the taxpayer dollar here for the size of this project. Secondly, transparency is very important to us, and that's why we recognized it in the contract that we are subject to the open record laws, and that we have to follow, and the contract has to follow those laws. Now, having said that, state law also has, I think, over 23, 25 exceptions to the open record laws that allow for us to keep certain things confidential, such as settlement matters, such as, and for the architect in particular, they have copyright protections that they can keep secret from other architects, and we have to protect them as well because we want to be good business partners for them. We also have a responsibility not to turn over proprietary information, because that is why they come to do business with a public entity, is that they have to have some assurance that we are going to protect that information. And so we are following the guidelines of state law, and that's the way we drafted the contract. What we have done in terms of, I don't consider it a gag order for us to use a collaborative effort to address media concerns. I think that shows good leadership. I think that shows that we have one voice and that we are all on the same page in a team, and we know what we're saying. And so that's what we did with the approach of directing it to the city and handling that. And so we have gone through this countless hours, Counselor. I cannot tell you how many hours we have put in, weekend time. This team has just poured over this contract. We had a consultant from Tegra pour over the contract to make sure that it is fully vetted, and I feel very comfortable in making the recommendation that it has been staff looked at and vetted over and discussed.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate that. Mr. Mayor, is there a motion on the table?
There's not.
I would move to approve, please.
Second, Rolfe.
Been a motion to approve this item and has been seconded. Councilor Kiley.
Well, thank you. I'd like to just address Councilor Karski's concerns about fee for services and reimbursement for actual expenses. I mean, we operate a contract with another larger entity, and I would love it if they would allow me to lump all of my estimated expenses into one single fee, because no doubt I'm going to make sure that we're going to be well compensated for the contract, and in many cases it's probably going to be overcompensation, because I'm going to make sure that I'm adequately covered for all of my estimated expenses up front, whether I've incurred them or not. So I think this has probably been proven time and again that this is the appropriate way to do that without paying out unnecessary funds. And we have gone through a number of informationals now on this. I think we're up to 3 informationals that we've had presented. We've had a number of emails that have been sent out, and some just here recently in the last few weeks, we've received at least 2 with the timeline, and so on. Councilors Anderson and Rolfing and myself have served on a Space Needs Committee along with others. We've gone through, I was part of the review of proposals for architect, and I do believe Coke Hazard is the obvious choice here from the 10 proposals that we had received. Keith and his team are going to do an excellent job. We've actually have just completed the construction manager at risk review of proposals. So at some point here in the future, a CMR contract will be presented to this council. And then at that point, Councilor Staggers, we will be able to come up with the scale and scope of the building, because now we've got the actual experts. And you have asked the question, you know, what is the dollar amount? And it's probably tempting to throw one out. I mean, I'm not a contractor, I'm not an architect. I have slept at a Holiday Inn, so I could give you a guess, but it would be just simply that. And I think if we want to have an accurate, this is an accurate amount, this is the process that you go through. So we're working slowly to that end, and this is just one step in that process of determining the overall cost. So I thank Aaron and Sue, Councilor, and Karen as well for the hours they've put in, as well as Councilors Anderson and Rolfing on this particular project. And I would urge your approval on this evening.
Councilor Anderson Jr., did you have a comment, sir?
No.
Okay, thank you. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Karski?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
No.
Anderson?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
That is passed 7-1. Thank you, Council. Item 35.
A resolution advising and giving consent to the appointment of members to certain citizen boards as follows. Deborah Deng to the Commission on Human Relations, Mark Anderson, Chris Fisher, and Craig Lauritsen, as well as Joel McDowell to the Infrastructure Review Advisory Board, Lorraine Lindquist to the Parks and Recreation Board, and Matt Burns to the Sioux Falls Sports Authority Board of Directors.
Councilors, would anybody want to make a motion on these items?
Move to approve, Karski.
Second, Erpenbach.
Councilor Karski's made a motion on these items to approve it, seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Karski?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Councilors, thank you. People of Sioux Falls, just a heads up, your city council started work no later than 4 o'clock today. And right now it's 10 o'clock here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and they're part-time city councilors. Thanks for your efforts. I appreciate it. Councilors, anybody else have anything else to discuss?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
There's been a motion to adjourn this city council meeting and has been seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, this meeting is adjourned. Sioux Falls, thank you, city council. Make it a great, great night.